Oops, sorry.
Camera show.
Hey, we are live. Union of the Unwanted. Ricky, I guess you have technical problems, but take it away. Oh, Ricky's mute.
You're muted. You're muted. There you are. Now you're muted again.
Yeah, you're muted again. This is great.
There you go.
Maybe he's bleeping himself.
I can't.
Now it's not his mic. He's not muted, but his mic's not working.
Okay.
That's all
You
real.
got too close to the truth, bro.
Wow.
Guys, welcome to the Union of the Unwanted. Ricky, are you back with us?
Not yet.
Yeah, you are.
There you are.
There you are.
You can hear me?
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What? Okay. That's great. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know what happened, but this is going to be
The Barry White of conspiracies. We can hear you.
Yeah. Well, everybody, another Union of the Unwanted. This is one of those very popular. It seems to be getting a lot of attention. Swap cast with researchers, people in the alternative media world, people, just different people with different perspectives, bring them together, hoping to provoke interesting conversations. So I think people have found these shows very refreshing, because one thing that has been awesome is that many of us have slightly different opinions, but we're all open to talking about them and just also sharing what's going on in our neck of the woods. And we've been able to connect with people from all over the world. One of our special guests today, which I'm very excited to have on with us today, is Pete Evans, somebody I just had an awesome 2-hour discussion with some weeks ago. And he's in Australia, which is a very hot spot at the moment. A lot of people are talking about Australia and New Zealand, and he brought up a lot of the stuff that's going on now on my show before it started happening, and he was saying it was going to get worse. So let's get Pete in this conversation early, also to also give me some time to stop sounding so flustered.
G'day everyone, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi.
Perfect. Just even today, this morning, what's happened in Victoria, I just shared it on my social media pages. And basically what they've stipulated is that they've done lockdown or implemented lockdown for another month as of last night. And this is going to go on for 6 months minimum, I believe. Every month they can extend it. So they've got a state of emergency or state of disaster. I mean, the definition of what those terms are keeps changing. And I'll just read you exactly what they wrote into the article today, because it's pretty telling. So they said, people suspected by health authorities of being likely to spread the virus if they are COVID positive or a close contact of an infected person could be forcibly detained if the bill is passed. The rules confirmed by this newspaper could be applied to conspiracy theorists who refuse to self-isolate, or severely drug-affected or mentally impaired people who do not have the capacity to quarantine. Those caught under the new rules could be detained in places where they could be monitored, such as hotels. The bill proposes the new powers the government says will strengthen the state's pandemic response, including broadening the types of government employees who can act as authorised officers. The state of emergency and state of disaster, which were extended last night for another 4 weeks, enables the officers to be able to restrict movement, search premises without a warrant, and give other directions that are deemed necessary to protect public health. So, yeah, I mean, you can read into that whatever you like. I mean, but basically, they're going to be hiring new people to be able to be these officers that can come into your home without a warrant, can detain you in a location not specified, and indefinitely. Even if you do not have the virus, but somebody you know may have it. Like, I've been saying this for the last 3 or 4 months, that Victoria will be the first to fall, and then New Zealand, for I believe what they've sold off on the Belt Road project. So it's pretty frightening. But then I'm in New South Wales, which is, over an imaginary border, with my family. And it's like COVID doesn't really exist here. Mm. It's bizarre.
Who's running where you are? Who's in charge over there? Is it the UN?
China is involved and Israel.
Yeah, Max Egan was on my show, and he was talking about how there was this slow kind of Chinese purge going over there. Not purge, but this kind of reach for a very long time, and that the fires had a lot to do with the fact that the Chinese were taking a lot of the water over there.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of super sad because, I've been to Australia doing comedy. It's wonderful, wonderful country. And it's just so sad to see people just, and I just like I'll end here, but the cop, like, what are the cops thinking? Like, what are these cops? We're in this kind of conflict in the United States where it's like blue lives matter and we're very supportive of blue lives. But then we see like the history of law enforcement. And it's very much when the government wants to come and crack skulls, they send it in the form of riot police. So, these cops that are in Australia, like, what do they think's going to happen? Like, they're going to lock this down and then they're going to be treated different than their fellow citizens. Their children aren't going to be treated under this incredible 1984 draconian fucking censorship and anti-privacy laws. I mean, that's
the same thing that happened with the Jews in Germany. There were Jews, there were rabbis that gave out their lists of their congregants and thinking that they would, people can, I don't care what people think, it's true. And thinking that they would be saved. No, they were just the last to go. How I feel about what's going on with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Who do they think that they matter? They're throwaways. The real people running this. That's why I asked who's running where you are. Is it the UN? Because that's what scares me.
There's a really interesting thing that's just surfaced over the last week. It's called the Smart Cities, and Victoria has signed on to the Smart Cities.
There you go.
Group. And then once you dig into that, you'll sort of start to see it. But the interesting thing is, they've had protests in Sydney and they've asked me, Melbourne and Sydney and different states. Not many people are turning up because in Victoria, for instance, they're getting what's called JobKeeper. So the government is giving the employees that can't go to work basically a paid holiday. And I don't want to generalize it like that, but they're getting paid to not go to work. So the population, if I can generalize, is quite comfortable getting that money. Now it's the business owners which are hurting, but they're sort of a small percentage because the population are the sort of the nuts and bolts, but they're getting paid. So I've spoken to a lot of business owners. I've spoken to a lot of people that are laid off, and they said they're not really suffering. It seems like it is from the external, but actually in there, they've got restrictions on them, but it's still, they're getting paid. A lot of them are getting paid. So they haven't gone to that point where it's painful yet. And you know what it's like being a human being. When we suffer enough pain, that's usually when we make a change or we make a stand, whether it be for our health or for the environment or whatever it may be. And I think the government is playing it very smart by giving them enough money without having to work so that they're subdued. And all of these laws are starting to come into place. So it's when you can see what's happening, it's frightening. But when I share, we've got nearly 2 million people on social media. And for anybody that isn't aware, I used to host Australia's #1 TV show for 11 years. A version of MasterChef, let's put it that way, a reality cooking show, which was on commercial television. And I've been talking about diet and lifestyle for the last 10 years and being slammed by the media. And so we've got a big platform, but it's interesting because so many people still believe this virus is real. A pandemic. It's like, wake up.
You're slowly boiling frogs, and you're normalizing pathology, and you're evoking a snitch nation. We're paying people now. Facebook is paying people to stay off of Facebook conveniently till after the elections. So,
I just wanted to quickly talk about what is happening in Australia, because so far we've seen 2 videos of people pulled from their homes. One physically after their door was barricaded down. One, a pregnant woman who was supposed to get a sonogram. And now, even more frightening, I've seen a woman who basically doesn't comply for 20 seconds being pulled out of her car. Sam, you asked, what are these police thinking? And I'm thinking what they're thinking is we're going to lose our jobs if we don't do this. And we have to be the enforcers because, last week I talked about the fact that, the new outbreak was here. right? And everybody always talks about, oh, these mask mandates aren't a big deal in New York. They can't really fine you. It's a health department issue. Well, my small town, again, with 839 confirmed cases and 0 hospitalizations, let me say it again, 0 hospitalizations, just had a town meeting. I watched the Zoom meeting. It was incredible to me, where they're like, we need to make an ordinance so that the police can enforce this and now fine you on the street if you're not wearing a mask and 6 feet apart from somebody else. So now they have criminalized it. Now they have crossed the barrier. They've written it up. They're going to pass it this week, where if they feel like you're not wearing a mask and you're too close to another human being that you're not authorized to be with, they can now approach you and use legal force and fine you. And that to me is scary enough. You know, that's why I'm leaving this state. It's nuts. And what I've seen in Australia is even crazier, talking about anti-lockdown protests. You know, my governor in the same breath said last week that the BLM protests were not spreading the disease. There were no outbreaks after them, and they're rampant throughout my state. However, the college outbreaks were because of out-of-state students without any evidence and really just Johnny nonsense. So we're living in a very different world. You know, that's why we're calling it COVID 1984, everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to remember with respect to Australia is that one of the reasons why the police are acting as comfortable as they are, being the psychopaths that we've been watching on television, is that they know that the public is unarmed. They took care of that a long time ago through the Port Arthur situation. So now we've got Australians that have no way to fight back against this. I'm not a big gun fan. I'm not like a Second Amendment rah, like, you know, enthusiast or anything like that. But I like the fact that I've come over the last 10 years to appreciate the fact that, thank God, we are armed, because there's got to be at least some barrier there's got to be something in the back of the cops' heads to prevent them from just coming into people's houses and pulling pregnant women out in front of their husbands and handcuffing them, taking them. I mean, that stuff is bad. And I'm not saying that you need to, start a shootout or anything, but in the United States, the cops are very much aware that when they do stuff like that, there is at least the possibility that they could get shot when they go into somebody's house doing that. So we've watched it with Australia, and Pete correctly, I think, assesses New Zealand next. And what did we see after the shooting there? Guns being removed. We can get into, it's a topic for another time, the ins and outs of that shooting, but whatever. We see it in the United States as well. Every time there's a mass shooting, here comes instantaneously the push for gun control and gun confiscation. I would suggest that none of this is accidental, that this is what you do far in advance before you roll out an authoritarian lockstep program like they're rolling out in Australia. And Australia is ahead of the curve in the sense that they're disarmed for the most part, and that creates, this is something we need to keep an eye on because this is not stopping. I don't think any of us are naive to think that this is stopping with Australia or Victoria.
It's a test run. It's a test run. It's a test run
in Manhattan. We don't have guns.
And exactly, I was going to say that.
We're terrified. We are being hunted in Manhattan. People don't seem to understand. The people that he let out, the people on the streets are emboldened. These are career criminals that keep going through the door. They're trying to get everyone that they can out of Manhattan. There are no cops. We are walking home in a nice neighborhood, so-called, on the Upper East Side, and 3 of our friends have gotten beat up walking home. 2, they got their shit stolen. 1, they just punched them in the face and kept running. I'm talking about Midtown East in Manhattan. It took me 20 years to live in a safe neighborhood here, and now it's hell on earth. There are no cops.
Let me speak to that really quick.
Saying, I want a gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they took away the guns in here. Basically, you could not get a handgun permit in the beginning of March. As soon as this popped off, I think it was mid-March, they took that away. They're now trying to dissolve the NRA through lawsuits. And what she's talking about is a very stark reality in the fact that on Labor Day alone, New York City had 37 shootings. So to bring that also to, Peter Evans talking about smart cities, New York is the test run here, man. They gave the contact tracing to Bloomberg billionaires. They gave the education to Bill and Melinda Gates. They gave the smart cities and the rest to Eric Schmidt. Exactly. Right. And just 2 weeks ago, Bezos announced, you have open properties? We're going to open up 3,500 offices here. So now Bezos and his Amazon billionaires are coming in. So I see so many parallels on what is going on in Australia, going on in my home state right now.
New York City, they're putting up, I saw them the last 2 nights in the middle of the night around I tend to stay up late. I saw around 2 a.m. They were putting up, Con Edison was in the middle of the street, down the street in the middle of the night with all the lights on, putting up things that are now above the stoplights. This is not a joke. They are
5G.
watching us.
What is it, surveillance or 5G?
Yes, I think it's both.
That's where 5G goes.
I think
that's where 5G goes. It has to be just a little bit above your head.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in Wuhan. It was the first smart city.
It's terrifying. And we don't have guns. My friends that have restaurants, do you know that people walk right in there and ask for their money?
Yeah.
And I keep saying to my friend, first of all, 3 of my friends had to close their restaurants. And then the guys that are hanging in there, now they want, what they want to do. Now, if you want to eat in a restaurant in Manhattan, even though we have no deaths and no basically illness in this Manhattan, at least, you have to give your name, address, phone number, and get your temperature taken at the door.
Yeah.
To eat inside a restaurant at 25%. So we're just signing up to be contact traced. And like you said before about where you are, let me tell you something. I can see somebody a mile away now who is dressed in plain clothes, takes out their camera, and is taking pictures trying to snag restaurants to get a paycheck from de Blasio. And they must have a quota, So it's just, we are under surveillance and we have no cops, none. And we have emboldened criminals and no guns. And no way to protect ourselves. Anyone could kick in one of these doors. You think one of these 75-year-old doormen are going to be able to stop somebody if they kick them and go upstairs and just kick in door after door? No, it's not. We cannot live in New York City in the way it is. This is going to become a bloodbath, and it's becoming it, but it could be so much worse. And another thing, I'll let everyone go. But another thing is don't let them downplay what they're doing to New York. It's real and it's terrifying and it's on purpose. It's on purpose. And don't forget the belly of the beast, the Lucis Trust /UN is really the puppet master, the whole show where all of us are. So,
well, behind that, the bankers. Is there an echo? Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm in Costa Rica, and I got the cops called on me because I refused to wear a face diaper plus take my temperature assaulted at my third eye, and put chemicals on my hands. And then I went to another bank. This was in a bank, and I pretended to put Purell on my hand, and I had someone snitch me out. And I'm actually returning to Chinafornia tomorrow, supposedly on United, which I'm having panic attacks right now. And I tried to check into United, and I have a PCR test that shows it's negative. And I have a letter that says back in February, before I came here, because I predicted that they were going to weaponize the fever and the fever gun, that I have suffered from low-grade fever, and I wasn't able to check in automatically. And I don't know if they have a dossier on me because I'm a troublemaker. But if you've been in touch with anyone who's had COVID-19, then you're a problem. I don't know what's going to happen at the airport, and I'm still questioning whether I should come back to Chinafornia.
Well, it's nice and hot for you with all the fires and everything. So
Yeah, it'll be good when you're wearing your face diaper. Like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's not a joke, folks. George Floyd said, I can't breathe 11 times before he ever got put on the ground. It's a joke. They're laughing at us.
They're laughing at us. That's what I say about Netflix putting this show on. They're laughing at us. They don't hide it. This was on purpose. I'm sorry to jump to the Netflix, but people are making a big deal about this. Isn't about Netflix. This is about the powers that be, the crazy people that are running the CFR, running the UN, running the Lucis Trust, running the Rockefeller Foundation, trying to generate our children and divide our children and take God and family and everything that is sacred to Americans and turn it upside down so that they can own our children. And I'm sorry to jump to there, but it's a mass insurgency of just everything evil at one time. And, I keep telling people I'm in New York City scared out of my mind because I can't, during the day, I'm scared. What? I moved here when I was 17. I'm 40. And I'm walking around thinking, oh, my God, I've never been scared in the city till now.
It's micro terror every day. It's terrorism, micro terrorism. We're being terrorized on the micro level.
But what can we do? Okay, so now we're at this point. And I my big thing lately has been to kind of really zero in on the cause. On the real cause of this is that we're not running Donald Trump against Joe Biden. We're running Donald Trump against the UN / the complete and total takeover of our entire planet. And I know, I mean, all of us are on the same team when it comes to the reality of the facts that there are a handful of billionaires that really want all smart cities, that want by 2050 for all of us to live in cities completely controlled. And they're the only people that will have access to anything else. And this has been a long-term plan. And I at this point, I don't even know what to say to people anymore that are telling me they're voting for Joe Biden. I don't know either. You're giving away our planet. This isn't about America. This isn't about America. This is about evil. We have been convinced, I believe, that this Lucis Trust, Luciferian-based UN is meant to globalize us all so we all hold hands and get along. But it's not. These people,
the game of divide and conquer.
Right. And then they think they're winning. And the truth is, I think that the media, who all belong in prison, most of them, as far as I'm concerned, but I think it's probably a couple million people that are doing the damage in America. But to the rest of the world, it looks like we're burning down at the seams, and then they're telling the rest of the world and us that Joe Biden's winning when we know that that's Kamala Harris winning, because the Obamas have been running a counter government this entire time, and they wanted Kamala. So, at this point, it's not America. It's free people all over the world versus, these people that have a million times played the same game and we let them get away with it. And it's this time, are we going to again? It's the French Revolution.
You make a good point in regards to the illusion that the whole world is crumbling and we're living in this just chaos, because the same thing happened with the height of the lockdown, right? I don't know if your experience was, but with my experiences, I had people who was listening to the show, Jim Florentine, what's up, bud? And who were listening to the show, they were all over the world and they were contacting me and they're like, oh my God, you're in Massachusetts, you're in the East Coast, you must be in the hot spot. It must be crazy living over there. And everybody I was talking to, basically, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, they were all saying that the news was telling them that the world was ending and that all these people were dying and hospitals were full to the max and all this stuff. But everybody that I knew was like, well, it must be somebody else experiencing this because I'm not experiencing it. So it's like they created this illusion on the news that like everybody is dying and the world is falling and all this stuff. But I know people who were working at hospitals. I know people who were nurses, people who worked at, for ambulance services, firemen, police officers who were going to calls. They were all saying the same thing. If you really talk to the people who were there, a few of them were panicked prior to all this really going down, because the news kept saying there's a wave of that's going to come and it's going to overwhelm the hospitals and all that stuff. And then after a while, they realized, like, oh shit, what I'm really scared of is just this wave, this hysteria that they're saying is going to happen that never came about and never happened. So people were more afraid of just the speculation and all the things that were. And then when people talk about the second wave, that's what makes it humorous. It's like, wait, you're freaking out about the second wave? Like, the first wave was completely blown out of proportion. Now you believe the second wave. And this goes back to how easily people, I mean, so much of this has become political, because if it wasn't political, how much more evidence do you need that truth is being censored, or at least alternative views are being censored? I don't want to use truth, because, you know, some people might have different information or whatnot, but at least anything that goes against the alternative or the mainstream narrative, anything that's alternative, even though in our typical lives, it's completely normal to go to a different doctor, get a second opinion. You can get a second opinion. That's completely acceptable. It's normal. But in regards to this, no, whatever Dr. Fauci says goes. If somebody else with a PhD who's been studying medicine has a different perspective, like Dr. Jensen, who was 2016 physician of the year in Minnesota, like, his opinion doesn't matter. He's pseudoscience. It's like, no, he studies medicine. He's looking at the same information, coming up with a different conclusion, just like a lot of these doctors are going against the grain. But they decided that no, in this case, and only in this case, because if you're an athlete, you can get a second opinion, completely acceptable for doctors to have different takes on the same scenario. But in this situation, only we're deciding what truth is, and only these doctors know what's really going on. Everybody else who has a different take based on the same information is slightly different. I mean, just recently, Dr. Fauci was saying that vitamin C and vitamin D can help fighting the virus. I mean, it's in an article, but yet months ago, people were being taken down Facebook for this and taken
Not
down.
even months ago, he was talking to Matthew McConaughey, and he wouldn't even repeat the word zinc. I'm a functional medicine consultant and coach, and nobody on the COVID-19 task force has mentioned the immune system, and he wouldn't even repeat. And he actually said he did this, and he said it's all in your head. Just, you can take it, but it doesn't do anything. So has he said the word immune system? The only person who's mentioned a vitamin is actually President Trump, who's talked about zinc. So, and people are still believing the Fauchster, the fucking pandemic impresario is what I call him.
I'm going to jump in here for a sec before I head off, but just very, very quickly, last week I interviewed a reporter that's in the White House, a woman called Chanel Rian, and she gave me an hour of her time. And I asked her the questions about Operation Warp Speed and what she thinks Trump's doing and the relationship with Fauci. And she was saying, she goes, you can't quote me, even though she said it. She goes, it seems that he is going to be under investigation or is under investigation for conflict of interest at the moment. And what was telling about that interview, and I just launched it yesterday on my podcast, if anyone wants to listen to it. Amazing woman. And she was saying, because I said, what's the deal with vaccines and Trump, right? This Operation Warp Speed, the military. She said Trump's not anti-vaccine, but he understands that they're not completely safe. And he is looking for, don't believe everything that he says in that context. And I'll let you have a listen to it. It's a brilliant hour-long interview. And I asked her as well, I said, how come Trump doesn't talk about Bill Gates? How come no journalist ever asked him about Bill Gates? Exactly. And she explains that as well. She goes, sometimes Fauci has mentioned it, but Trump, she said, he likes to keep people in his group that don't have the same opinions, because he doesn't want yes people in there. But he also, she goes, he also keeps people in there to let them basically hang themselves with enough rope for a period of time. And it's the game the Department of Justice plays as well, is don't stop it just yet, let it play out and see who is involved in this. And I thought it was a really telling interview. And whether you believe her or not, I mean, she's with OAN Network, which could be questionable as well. But it put a lot of things back into balance for me. So, I think there's exciting things coming. But then I listened to another podcast yesterday for 2 hours about that Trump's just a plant and this and this and this. I'm like,
Can I jump in there? Because, OAN is obviously pro-Trump, but if you just look at it, the guy got crucified for talking about what? Hydroxychloroquine, which was something that not only was talked about in the medical community and then censored, but Louis Gohmert, somebody who in Congress got this, used that, the zinc, the Zithromax, the vitamin C, D, the steroid treatments that now we can talk about as well. And all of that has been censored. So I think in a sense, he knew he had to play the game. That's what Operation Warp Speed is. Notice his vaccine gets questioned in the media. We had the Moderna tests. The media is almost silent about it. We have the AstraZeneca, one person with a spinal injury. Everybody reports on it. You see, Cuomo said he doesn't know if New York is going to recommend Trump's vaccine, even if the FDA passes it. But I guarantee once it's their vaccine and not the one Trump recommends, it will be not recommended, but mandated. So I think the guy's smart. He's playing angles. I don't think he wants to mandate it. Whether or not anyone's ever going to go to prison under Bill Barr and Durham, I'm still extremely skeptical. I've been waiting for years. But I also don't think this guy is just a dupe and doesn't know what he's talking about when he's playing those games.
I've got one more thing just to add, if that's okay. And I interviewed Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who made Vaxxed last week or the week before. And I asked him the question. I said, what's the deal with Trump? Because apparently when Trump came into power, he had Robert Kennedy Jr. heading up the vaccine safety testing or committee. And then that got shelved. Yeah. Andrew Wakefield said he had 58 minutes with Trump talking about MMR, autism, the safety of vaccines. And he said he was in a room with other politicians and everybody else was looking at their phone and their watches, wanting to get out of there. He said Trump engaged with him for the full 58 minutes. And he believes, well, this is what Andrew Wakefield said. He said, if the Democrats get in, it'll be mandatory vaccine for every single American. If Trump gets in, he believes that he will offer it for people that want to take it. And for the ones that don't want to take it, he won't make it mandatory. And this is Andrew Wakefield, who I'm is a pretty big hitter. And then I interviewed a few days ago a fellow called David Martin, who was on the pandemic indoctrination. And I asked him about Trump, and I said, when Trump says the China virus, he's not really talking about coronavirus, is he? He's actually talking about China with the Belt Road Project and everything. And he basically alluded saying Trump talks in code. That's why he keeps saying China virus, China virus, China. He's trying to let people know that this is not about a virus. So, but he still has to play the game. So really interesting stuff. And I'll release that podcast, both of those this week. So
President Trump has gone on record as far as 2012. He arguably has a vaccine injured child. And we who fight for vaccine safety and spread information know this and collect this like seeds. So we know that he knows, and whether he's playing 5D chess, whether this is all political theater, but there's no question that he knows the dangers of vaccines. And Marla Maples, Charlene Bollinger has spoken to President Trump, and Marla Maples, people in my community speak to her, and yeah, he knows the dangers of vaccines, but he has to play the game.
Well,
that's what we can hope.
Del Bigtree I think it was on this show last time he was on, he talked about how he feels like he's almost messing with people, because he's like, oh yeah, we're going to give everybody the vaccine and we'll give all the doctors the vaccine first, and it's like, it was almost like he's kind of like, like wink, wink. Yeah, I'm for the vaccine. You guys want to push it. How about you guys get it first? So I think stuff like that, it's weird because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And there's so many people influencing what's going on. There's so many, big pharma. There's so many things going on that it really makes it hard to know what he can and cannot say. We could easily look at the situation and be like, he can't do certain things because of this person. But, we also be attempting to mold him to be out this hero that maybe he's not. We don't know, So, the Bill Gates thing, I don't know if you guys ever saw the clip of Bill Gates talking about meeting with Trump about vaccines.
Yes.
And that was really interesting because he talks about how Trump, we couldn't hear you, Sam.
Oh, sorry. Dumb. Don't do that dumb or something like that. Whatever he said about
yeah. And he was talking about how Trump talked to Kennedy about vaccines, and then he's like, oh no, there's no health issues with vaccines or whatnot, and kind of made Trump sound like he was a dummy or whatnot. But during one of the debates, I don't know if you guys remember, but he actually brought it up with that doctor that he was running against, doctor the black guy, what's his name?
Carson?
Yeah.
Ben Carson?
Brought it up, yeah. And they were trying to make Trump look dumb by bringing it up. It's like, hey, Dr. Carson, what do you think about Trump questioning the safety of vaccines? And then I think little did they know, Carson was actually pretty reasonable in regards to his answer and said, well, the safety thing, I don't know, but Trump's like, oh, I'm just basically concerned about how many you're giving. I think there's something there. And Carson's like, yeah, I kind of agree with him that, there is some concerns about, how many they're getting all at once and all this stuff. I mean, it's silly. They tell you to wash your hands before you touch a newborn. They tell you if you're sick, don't go see a newborn, but it's completely okay to inject them. Like, right. It doesn't make any logical sense. Even if you're just a complete idiot in regards to like science and immune systems and nutrition, just think of it logically. I've said this over and over again. If I give every single kid in the world peanut butter, some are gonna die. It doesn't mean that peanut butter is the most dangerous thing in the world, but it means that everybody or a lot of people react to the same thing differently. So if we give everybody the exact same cocktail, if we give every single kid the flu vaccine, we give every kid, there's going to be some people who have health issues, are going to have some neurological issues, or even die, and that's been the case. So it's not unscientific to say that. It's actually unscientific to say you give every single kid the exact same vaccine, the exact same cocktail of ingredients, and they're all going to have the exact same reaction to it. That's unscientific. As you can tell, I get worked up a little bit.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, pharmacia means sorcery. If you take a look at, you're giving a child that's less than 24 hours and you're giving them a hep shot, and what's in this?
A gay party drug.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking pharmacy. Just imagine Bill Gates with like a witch's brew. It's like, oh, we'll take some fetal tissue that we've grown the virus on as a substrate, and some aluminum and some mercury, and then we're going to put it back into the baby. Like, it's just completely fucked up. And this is scientism. It has nothing to do with science. And herd immunity never originally had anything to do with vaccines. In the 30s and 40s, they introduced vaccines into the theory. And I hope that people will, the big pharma will be happy with the people who are going to run to get this RNA vaccine that's never been tested on humans, that's going to genetically modify people.
Well, some interesting stuff just over the last 2 weeks. I've interviewed a few different people. Andreas Kalka, if you've heard of him, he's doing amazing research on chlorine dioxide at the moment, MMS. So he left me a message the other day saying that they've treated 17,000 people with coronavirus and had success. This is in Bolivia, I think, and he's got 17 different countries working with this. Professor Mark Cohen in Victoria released a paper recently talking about how heat can be very, very powerful with coronaviruses as well. So he's released a paper on that, and you can listen to that on my podcast. I spoke with Niraj Naik 2 days ago, and he has Soma breath, and him and Wim Hof were talking last week, and what they've worked out is their form of breath work acts like hydroxychloroquine when they do it in a certain method, and they're releasing something very shortly about this as well. And then I also, 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a guy called Dr. Isaac Golden, who's regarded as one of the leading experts on homeopathy immunization. He's a fellow in Victoria as well, and he was talking about they've already created the coronavirus, if you believe in the germ theory or terrain theory, and that possibly it's somewhere in between, or two realities can exist at once. But he's got homeopathics for that as well. It's really, really interesting, all of these different, I guess, solutions that are popping up, and most of them are free. And sunlight, as we know, is the best vaccine in the world. So I think this is a really important time in human history where we're seeing, and I've said this before, potentially if they do release a vaccine mandatory, and Victoria, I think, will be the first place, or New Zealand will be the first place, I think we're going to see the death and destruction, the suffering and the pain of a lot of people, and that might actually be the catalyst for other people that still are stuck in their mummy and daddy, government and farmer is going to save us mentality, where they'll actually see the abuse of that system. And I hope it doesn't go down that path, that we have to witness that and people suffer. But understanding human beings and studying them, we realize, as I said earlier, perhaps we need to be in pain for us to change, because the preventative model is not... We haven't worked that out as a population just yet. So I don't mean to laugh about this, but I think everything is being exposed at the moment. Everything is coming to a point where I think we're going to tip over into a new way of thinking, and these old systems are going to crumble under their bullshit, so to speak. So
I totally agree with that.
Concerned, frightened, ecstatic, all of the emotions every single day. So, and I just want to thank everybody for having me on. I'm going to have to run, and it's been a pleasure, and sorry if I've spoken too much today. Peace and love, everyone.
Thank you, Paul. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that. And I agree with him. I think we're coming to a great place where more and more we are finding out the truth about what's going on, across many different political beliefs, philosophical beliefs. Everyone thinks we're entering an age of enlightenment. I really do believe that we're coming into this. I mean, we just saw, and we can enjoy the victory for a couple seconds, but, in Pennsylvania, they just announced that this lockdown is unconstitutional. I think that is the beginning, of the pushback. I get in a weird way where sometimes I just like, you know what? If some people want to take it, let them have it. Let them alter their DNA for the rest of their generations of their family's life. That's on them. But the rest of us have to push back. And the rest of us, I really think we have to start bringing people into the mix, finding common ground. Stop looking at the what's different about all of us, but find what brings us together. Find us in recovery. They say find the similarities, not the differences. And I think we're really focusing on the differences right now, not in this show, but like in general, across the world. Like, you're in that group, I'm in this group, we can't get along. But yeah, man, we both love our families. We both want to make an honest dollar, and we both want to just like live in peace, smile, laugh, get laid once in a while, get drunk, have a good time, all the stuff that is like great about life. We need to focus on that. I'm personally going to work on doing mushrooms with Black people more. I think that's a big thing. I'm going to try to do shrooms more with the Black community, because I don't hear enough rappers talking about that. And I think that will really help. But, there's like the gay community, feminism, the Black community. I just think they're getting manipulated at such a high level by people that they trust, that and that they just see people like us, just like, okay, we're alt-right or whatever. They see us as like, the enemy. And I'm just like, I love everybody. I love the melting pot. They've diversified our diversity. I mean, they've weaponized our diversity. And I think we really need to start to find common ground and express people where we're coming from, and not just get mad. It's like the thing that happened with the two cops. Like, nobody likes that, man. But I think we also have to be really open-minded that, like, the blunt force trauma that cops do to some people is can have a bad cause a bad reaction from the community. So I think we need to start finding common ground instead of like looking at differences and celebrating other people getting hurt. That's kind of my opinion.
Here. I would agree, because we're being used as pawns in a game of divide and conquer. And if it is all political theater, we should. I try not to have hate for Kamala or Sleepy Joe, or that's the real virus: hate and fear, I think.
Well, we got another East Coaster on the call. We're dominating these calls. We got Sam. I mean, now he's Hollywood, but he's from New York. Let's be honest, he's the East Coaster. And now
I'm Union, dude.
and Jason, and thanks, Jim, for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. I just wanted to get back to the vaccines real quick. When my son was born, we're in a hospital, and the nurse is coming in ready to give him the Hep B shot. And I go, what's that for? She goes, oh, it's a hepatitis B shot. I go, yeah, but that's for like drug addicts and people having sex. I go, yeah, I know. But I go, why are you giving it to them now? She goes, we just want to get it out of the way.
No, it's really because it's the 1986 Act, and they need to usher it in to the pediatric schedule so that they can have immunity. That's
right.
why.
Just get it out of the way. I go, no, he's 27 hours old. He doesn't need it. And I didn't get it in the hospital. And then 5 weeks later, I got him the rotavirus. I made a mistake, like a liquid form, and he was in the hospital for 5 days from the reaction from it. And they wouldn't admit that it was from the vaccine.
Wow.
That he went in the hospital. I go, he just took it. They go, well, I can't answer that question when I would ask the doctors. We can't answer that.
And that's what could cause
Vax movie. Did you see the Vax movie with the lady that brought her son there, and the nurse gave him both. Both her kids are supposed to get vaccinated, and the nurse gave the son both the shots, and then was like, I don't know, okay, anyways, thank you. And it's just like I think, I have a lot of respect for science and doctors, but I think we got to stop looking at them as gods. I think it's like what people had with priests for a long time and holy men, where it's like they're the voice of God. It's like, no, dude, they're just human beings. They go to the bathroom, they crush it. Nobody wants to use the bathroom after that. They swear once in a while. It's just like they do all the things we do, but we got to stop looking at doctors like everything that comes out of their mouth is law, because they're not. Because I met a lot of these guys and they're not street smart at all. They're just good at regurgitating talking points that they know will get them the high score on their test. So I think we need to start going, listen, man, I trust you, but it's like, you're 26 hours, they want to hit my kids with a 20 after, right when they were born with a gay party drug shot. I like, unless my kids are going to glory holes, I don't think they need those shots.
More than the doctors.
You needed it, not your kids, Sam.
What?
Sam, you needed it, not your kids.
That's so true.
Also, more than the doctors, we are, there's a big thing about foundations and think tanks and science and studies. When they talk about these studies are well financed by the drug companies.
Yep.
And then you have people that are owned by big pharma and the drug companies, including Fauci and Birx, who are coming out and they are, they're singing the same tune. If they got a Gates Foundation grant to do a study, well, nobody else that got a Gates Foundation grant can say anything against that study.
Exactly.
Because they took the money. And that's with every pharmaceutical company study that is financed. My sister was a scientist doctor at UCLA. If she's doing a study for Eli Lilly, well, she's not going to contradict any studies that they're paying for because they're paying her for a study. It's really the medical, just like the military industrial complex.
Medical mafia.
Medical industrial complex. And it's all on the same
so important level. Because it is a real issue. It's a real issue with not just doctors, but police officers, lawyers, judges. Like, we put everybody on this pedestal where think about it, right? If you get a ticket, it's always like, oh, it's my word against the cop's word. Why does that matter? Because he picked a different career choice and that he has a better moral compass than you. Like he must be this hierarchy of person that is just doesn't lie, is more loyal, has a better moral compass. We do that with doctors. We do that with scientists. We feel like they don't have all the flaws that the typical human has, right? With dealing with corruption, desire, temptation, all these things. And it's silly. Like that shouldn't be the case. There's that meme that's going around, like how much does it take to pay or to buy a scientist or doctor? The same amount it takes to buy a politician. And it's true. Like they're all just effing humans. Like it's not like they make you go through some psychological evaluation on like, oh, are you a good moral person? Because if you're dealing with science and you're a doctor and you're writing meds, you have to be a good person and you can't harm anybody. It's like, no, that's silly. So I think there is this issue that if somebody with a white jacket says something, then all of a sudden their word is more important or more valid than the average person.
A doctor gets less than 25 hours of nutritional education in their 4 year of training. They get no education in regards to vaccine administration. No, they just only learn how to administer a vaccine. They get no education on what's in them, the adjuvants, and just in regards to, Mel was saying that there's an operation called Quack Hack, and it's part of the FDA is going after all natural remedies, just like the YouTube takes their directives from the World Hoax Organization from China, that this operation is going after vitamin C. Like Mark Grenon of Genesis Church is still in jail in Bogota. His sons are still in jail since July. So as a result, my site is being attacked because I'm peddling hacks like quack. I'm a quack because I sell vitamin C, I sell CBD, I sell silver. So the person who makes our silver is a chemical engineer with a PhD. He graduated from Duke University. He's not able to get any independent study for the silver, which is 4,000 ppm that we make, because Fauchster sits on the Doris Duke Foundation. And where do they get their money from? Kill Gates. So every study is kiboshed.
Right.
So and they are going after all the natural remedies. I mean, even in Costa Rica, there was a headline, "Don't drink bleach." And they crucified Trump because arguably he was talking about MMS, mineral salts. And with silver, they'll pretend that you're going to turn into a Smurf. You're not going to. Do I look like a Smurf? I've been taking it for almost 10 years. I have not taken antibiotic after taking it, gobbling it like candy, growing up in the 80s. So they are going after natural remedies, and they want people to forget that they have an immune system, and just like they crucified HCQ.
There's also an agenda to brand everybody that isn't on board with vaccines as being anti-science. And that is not the case. I mean, there might be a few that are like, let's put it in God's hands and just hope for the best, you know what I mean, with this baby. But there are a lot of people that are very much pro-science. And that's the reason why they're having questions about the vaccines. Not because they're ignorant morons that don't know any better, but because they figure, well, before I inject something into my kid, I'm going to do some research and just make sure that everything is fine. And what they're finding out is there are a lot of questions about it. There's $4.2 billion that has been paid out already by the VAERS court. More than half of that is from the flu shot alone. And by the way, that number should be 100 times higher than it is, because you have to jump through unbelievable hoops to even get in there. And most of the cases are dismissed. It's run by the Department of Homeland Security or Health and Human Services and the DOJ. It's a joke of a court. And they've still paid out more money than the Catholic Church has paid out for raping kids. And everybody knows that the Catholic Church has a problem with that. That's not some big mystery, but Big Pharma has paid out. Well, technically we've paid out because the money for this $4.2 billion settlement fund comes from everybody that purchases a vaccine. 75 cents goes into this pot and they pay it out. So I asked the question, why would you pay out $4.2 billion to settle product liability claims, even when you have a blanket immunity for product liability claims, unless there is a problem with your product? This is logic and reason. And if you inject this into somebody, their heads explode. They can't process logic and reason. And if you question the science, you question the vaccine schedule, you question the fact that there's immunity for them, you question why autism has exploded, you're the crazy person for bringing it up, for having the audacity to challenge a doctor because he wears a fucking white coat. And so you can't question anything that he's done. Well, I'm sorry. But
they gaslight now.
Doctors can't admit it, because for them to admit, a guy, let's say you're a pediatrician 25 years in, comes to the realization that maybe these shots are hurting kids. Think about the cognitive dissonance there for this guy. He's invested his entire life to be a doctor. He's done a quarter of a century of harm that he didn't mean to do. He's got to process that. He's got to deal with his peers that will all know that none of them will support him if he decides to blow the whistle. And they're in a really tough situation if they come to this realization. So the system is created in a way that it protects this. It perpetuates this silence in the doctors. It silences victims with threat of clawbacks at 10 times the amount of payback if you breach your gag order when you receive your settlement. So it's a dirty business. And we're not conspiracy theorist weirdos for asking the questions about this. We're just logical people taking a look and saying, there's a problem. We've traced it back to this could be a real big source of it. Maybe not all of it, but a huge source of it. And we have questions about, nope, take the vaccine or get out of my pediatrician's office. You're banned from here. You can never come back. For what? For questioning this? This happens all the time. It's insane.
And now they're peddling the flu vaccine as we face the greatest fall, the darkest winter. And you have people like Birx saying to take the flu vaccine when in reality, it makes you more vulnerable to get the Rona.
Right.
Well, that was a Pentagon study, that they saw it was like 30 something, like
36%.
More likely to get a coronavirus. Yeah. I mean, I know people critique that study, but I mean, that says something. I mean, the flu vaccine for a long time before Robert Kennedy Jr. got the Marisol taken out was told for a long time, oh, there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. And then finally it's, he proves that in court that it's harmful. It's more mercury than your body should be ingesting, and they remove it. But what about all those doctors and pediatricians that were giving out that vaccine prior to that and telling you there's nothing to worry about?
They were getting kickbacks. Pharma is a big, big business. They are chemical companies. Don't forget, Bill Gates does invest in Monsanto, does invest in Moderna, does invest in all these companies. When he gives all this money away and people think he's being such a big philanthropist with his Gates Foundation, the money's going back into companies he has invested in. And at the end of the day, I still will always go back to, it's more about depopulation than the opposite. Totally. If somebody thinks that there's too many people on this planet and their main goal is eugenics and depopulation, and then they tell us to take a vaccine, maybe that's the problem. Maybe not looking at weight, but that doesn't make sense. Like, why would somebody who's stated that there's 15% more people on the planet than there should be making a vaccine that everyone should take? I don't know what to do anymore, but then it comes out last week that Bill Gates paid over $400 million to different media outlets, including buying a big chunk of Comcast and buying a big chunk of Time Warner. So, we're not really told, and he's in cahoots with Soros. But at the end of the day, I don't know why, I don't know when or how these people that are controlling this whole vaccine movement got the right to decide. It seems like they stole it, because I don't know how Bill Gates earned it, because it seems like his vaccine and his AIDS projects have killed more people than they've helped.
Don't forget that the MS in MSNBC stands for Microsoft.
Right.
So
This was a guy that was probably like a nerd and has like a revenge fantasy, and he's succeeded.
I mean, his family, they come from eugenicists. I mean,
exactly.
It's depopulation. I mean, those are terms that 10 years ago, even like 5 years ago, a lot of people kind of poo-pooed and laughed at if you bring them up. But now it's like, it's quite obvious. I mean, Margaret Sanger, who people would talk over and over again about, a racist who really, her motivation wasn't to try to get poor African Americans birth control. But what she was trying to do was depopulate them by getting them birth control. And
Black Lives Matter.
And Bill Gates' father funded Planned Parenthood.
And her name is finally being taken off a lot of buildings and streets and a bunch of stuff, because they're finally admitting that, this person that they idolize was actually motivated by her racist views and her, wanting to depopulate the minorities. And that's why the first, whatever it was called, like the birth control clinic of America, whatever the hell it was called, the birth control place that was open in like a poor part of New York, because they were trying to get and they only had minorities working there because they're trying to attract minorities. And so it's quite obvious. These things, this is where there's a little bit of sign of hope, because all these things that were fringe not too long ago are now things that people are looking at from a completely different perspective, and people are much more open-minded to a lot of these things, I think.
I got a question for Jim Florentine, if you guys don't mind. Maybe along the same subject matter, I don't know. Vince Neil, too many vaccines. What's going on with him lately?
Vince Neil what?
Vince Neil, have you seen him sing lately?
Yeah.
He cannot, I don't know if you've seen like the most recent Motley Crue concert, but he cannot form words and sing at all.
Look, he's almost 60 years old.
Oh.
The guy's just, he's an old school rocker who still drinks and smokes and gets high and lives like he's 25 years old. So that's obviously going to affect his voice. He doesn't care. He's got a huge belly. I almost respect him in that sense. He's like, look, I'm worth $25 million. I give up. I'm good. I just want to enjoy my life. I don't want to be working out 6 days a week anymore. I just want to have fun. But no, he's always had voice problems, especially live. But now it's out of control.
They should do what Ozzy does, right? Doesn't Ozzy go on tour with someone backstage and like who actually sings the words? Because I saw Ozzy in '92 and he couldn't sing, and he literally run around like an infant baby in diapers. They just said, "Going off the rails," and he didn't care because it was Ozzy. Can't imagine what it is. So the rumor is that there's someone backstage that actually does the singing, and he just sits in front of the mic, and everyone's like, yeah. But that's no different than a lot of these rock stars and like these pop divas who have to dance and sing. I mean, like I had one bit where I was running from a zombie, and I would run and I would talk and I would just be almost dead. And that was just one little bit. So I couldn't imagine, doing an entire like hour and a half of choreography.
Yeah, well, now they got a lot of backing tracks, so a lot of the bands use them, the older bands. I don't know if Ozzy ever had someone singing, like he was singing, because he would, a lot of times he couldn't hit the notes, but just because he was Ozzy, you forgave him.
Yeah.
Because he was so silly up there. So, I mean, if they were going to make it perfect, he would have hit the notes. So, but now they got all those computers and all that stuff, and everyone sounds amazing at concerts. So I'm on the fence about that. But, you do want to hear this kind of, you don't want to hear a guy croaking up there like Vince sometimes when you go to a Motley Crue show. You're like, this is terrible.
Are you touring yet, Jim? Are you doing gigs?
A little bit, some outdoor shows. I'm on the East Coast. So, while it's still warm, there's a bunch of outdoor comedy shows we could do. But, once it gets cold here, everything's going to shut back down, guaranteed. I've
been doing some touring. I've seen one Biden sign the whole time. One.
That's great.
Oh yeah,
that's more than me.
It's unbelievable how these polls, it's so bad, but it's just like it's like they say about lizard people, they can't create anything new, so they just keep doing the same trick over and over and over again. They think making these polls just blatantly deceiving people that somehow this will trick people in to voting for Biden. I mean, and now we got this. What do you guys think of the Joe Rogan thing? Like, I love Joe Rogan. He's my friend. I'm like, why would you insert yourself into that? I love you to pieces, but now you're kind of forcing the DNC's hand at this point, one way or the other. I think that's dangerous, dude.
Yeah, I know. He doesn't, Joe's got a big audience, and he's, they're like, don't put that message out there because you got a bunch of guys that might be on the fence on who they're going to vote for. You can't, you live in
no chance
anymore. It's like, you got to toe the line. Don't say that stuff. And they're freaking out that he's saying that. It was almost like Howard Stern back in the day. He had that.
No, but the new thing, dude, he wants to moderate a debate between.
I know. I saw that. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm saying it is dangerous now because and he's in Austin. He's like, I don't give a shit. I'm not going for Hollywood roles. So you can't. But who knows what they're going to do to him?
He don't.
Just that he's putting that out there.
We gonna send Mossad to take out Rogan. He's got like a black belt and everything. Good luck on that.
Well, he had Adam Curry on for his first episode. Back, which I thought was pretty badass. And what's funny? If you hear Adam Curry, I don't know if it was the show right before or right after they released the Rogan show. He was talking about, he's like, yeah, Rogan wanted to jump right into the vaccine conversation. And he's like, dude, he's like, this is your new platform. I'm like the big first guest on, and he wanted to jump right in. He's like, I'm super high, and he's like, I wasn't ready to just start talking about vaccines. So it made me wonder, like, oh shit, like he kind of tiptoed around that topic a lot on YouTube when he was just on YouTube and didn't have the Spotify deal. And now it seems like for him to jump in on it, and he listens to Adam Curry's show, the No Agenda show, and obviously he knows Adam Curry personally. He knows where he stands in all this. I mean, No Agenda has been doing some of the best research and work on this whole lockdown this whole time. So the fact that he's willing to get into that conversation immediately makes me think like what Sam was saying and some other people were saying right off the bat was true, that maybe he was holding back, maybe he was tiptoeing around certain topics because of the censorship, and he was trying to like maybe monetize his YouTube channel as much as he can for the time being. And then once he hit the road and got his deal, he's like, well, fuck that. Now I'm open to say what I want and what I want. And so that's interesting, because I mean, Del Bigtree, when he was on my show at the very end of it, one of the last times he was on, he was saying, he's like, oh, fuck Joe Rogan. He's like, we've been trying to get Robert Kennedy Jr. on the show, myself. Yeah. We know we have mutual friends. We're trying to, all this stuff. He's like, and you figure Robert Kennedy Jr., I mean, he obviously he knows people who could probably talk to Joe Rogan's people. And he was saying right off the bat that like, hey, he doesn't want anything to do with our side of the debate. But now it looks like, well, maybe that's why. Maybe because he saw this was prior to the Spotify deal being public. Maybe, he knew right around the corner he'd be able to be more open about these topics. We know for a fact, because he's talked about it openly, that he was upset about the censorship of doctors and people talking about vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc and anything to do with immune systems. So, I want to believe that there is hope, and maybe his platform with such a big reach will be much more open to this debate, because this is people, unfortunately, people look up to Joe Rogan, and if Joe Rogan, just like I'm a lot of people who are famous, and if he says something like, hey, like vaccines are safe, or he has somebody like Dr. Ortiz or any other
Ortiz on.
Schmucks on that are for vaccines, people are going to be like, what, I'm going to vaccinate my kid because Joe Rogan's a smart dude. I respect him. He's on this side. So I'm not going to do my own research. I'm just going to believe him. So the thing is, like, he needs people like him. Obviously, he doesn't have to do anything, but hopefully he understands that there's a lot of people who aren't going to even question it because he's not questioning it, and they respect him.
Is it true that he tests any guest that comes on for the Rona? That he said that, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little excessive?
I mean, I think he has to do it because of the laws, because he's flying
gold, make the rules, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know he had to do it for California because of the draconian rules there and the contact tracing. But, the one thing that I thought was interesting is he said he wanted it just to be him, Trump, and Biden in a room for 4 hours. Does anyone think there's been a recent day in the last few weeks or months that Biden has been conscious for 4 hours straight, let alone able to debate and talk? I mean, like, that's a real question. If you think about it, the last time you saw him on stage for even 2 or 3 hours were those DNC primary debates. He hasn't been out in public for more than 45 minutes and God knows how long. So
is it an act?
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
I wonder too.
And Joe get him super high before it too, so he'd be extra tired.
I want to know who the fuck won't be watching if they finally get those two on a debate stage, because that'll be the best TV ever. Like, we don't know what the fuck is going to happen. I mean, there's some of the shit that comes out of Joe Biden's mouth. I mean, people think like all the people on the left are like, oh yeah, Trump just says what he thinks and whatever. I'm like, Joe Biden is telling black people that you're not black.
Got hairy legs.
That was good. He actually just said that Trump is wanting to defund the police. He actually said that. It's like, and the people who hate Trump, do you actually watch him? Sure, it could all be political theater, but do you actually watch him? Because I do every single day for the past 7 months. I've never
Why do you
watched.
hate yourself?
What if the October
Why would you do that? I can't watch any of this theater, dude. It's just such poison, and I just it's just like listen, man. I believe that there is a lot of connection between. I think Trump represents a different crime boss. Mm-hmm. I think he's a crime boss of a different group.
Right.
But man, there's a lot of similarities between this election, in my opinion, and when Obama got elected, in that they, the other side, after George Bush Jr., America hated white guys, especially older white guys. So how do you counter that? Smooth black, right? Smooth black comes in, good looking guy, really cool. Comes out of nowhere, junior senator out Illinois. And who they have him up against? The most crotchety old man you could possibly pick, which is John McCain, right? And then the double down on how bad it is, out of nowhere, they bring in Sarah Palin, who was just sounded great for about 20 seconds. And then they're like, It's like Doug Stanhope's joke. It's like, what's the difference between Sarah Palin's mouth and her vagina? Only the half of the shit that comes out of her vagina is retarded, right? So, I mean, so my point is this: like, let's take a look at Biden and Biden. I mean, who is really energized about this? Nobody. And then Harris, there's a million people that could fit all those boxes that would be better than Harris. Why Harris?
But Harris, Obama and Soros and them wanted Harris. She was their choice. And when she started to fit, she was the first one to drop out that was big in the Democratic primary. So I think they already knew. I mean, everyone knows. But the scariest part is I speak to people all the time that tell me 10 reasons why Joe Biden's better than Trump. So I don't know. I don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, but the thing is, people are not voting for Biden. They're voting. It's
against Trump.
Yeah, against Trump, and that's not the way you should vote. I mean, I don't think you should vote at all. It's all fucking theater. It doesn't matter.
Right. But it's like Golda Meir said back in the day that if the Palestinians loved their children more than they hated the Jews, it would be a lot better, a lot easier to make peace. And we're in America right now thinking if the American people loved America and their children more than they hated Trump, they would never vote for Biden. But now about, 10 people a day will tell you 10 reasons.
I mean, turn on your own party. This shouldn't be acceptable. The fact that the DNC, I mean, the left wanted Bernie. I mean, this is twice that they wanted Bernie, and they force fed you whoever they thought, should be the face of the party. But I mean, the youth movement, all the young people, I mean, they wanted Bernie, and then you give them Joe Biden. Who the hell likes Joe Biden? But what Sam said was very important. They try to give you something drastically different than the last person, and I think that, I think a lot of the love to Obama was because he was drastically different than Bush, and Bush got us in wars. He did a horrible job with September 11th, and wink wink was probably responsible for it. But at least, but the thing is that he was drastically different, and because we hated Bush so much, it was easy to fall in love with Obama because he seemed drastically different. And I think we can get caught up in this where it's the same thing. We hate the left so much that we want to believe somebody from the right's the savior, and we can't get caught up in that because the truth is we're still in wars. The truth is you
guys think he took down the troops though, Ricky? I mean, I don't know, because every time something's that seems like it's a good thing, a million people on the other side tell me why it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, is this troop reduction a good thing?
Sam, I just want to say Tim Kennedy actually talked about it on Rogan's program. So he actually admitted that the troop reduction in Iraq would then deploy these people to other units around the world. So it's not like they're necessarily coming back to the United States. To Trump's point, at least he talks about the military industrial complex. We have not had a modern day president do so in a negative
manner. Just like he talks about Big Pharma.
Right.
Well, exactly. And again, passing something with an executive order that, whether you like it or not, is a platform that somebody like Bernie Sanders and the left has ran on forever to try to take out their steam. And I think it was Grassley. Chuck Grassley was the only one that gave him credit for cutting that and letting you get generic drugs. I'm no Trump cheerleader by any means. I think we all know this, but 2020 has been wild. And I want to propose something to everybody. What if the October surprise, I mean, this is a serious question, is Biden stroking out on Halloween?
He's going to, there's a very good possibility. I was going to ask you guys, is he going to swap out? Do any of you think they're going to swap him out?
The only way that could be a lot of different things, especially in this Me Too movement. Come on, man. It could be a whole bunch of different stuff.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you something. Sam, you think that Biden and Trump, that they're going to have a debate, or is Biden going to back out, or something's going to happen?
I mean, have we ever gone this long without a debate? I mean, it's, and the whole thing is if I was on the left, which I used to be, I'd be I want my guy out there.
Right.
But I mean, it's I can't believe nobody, and I think a lot of this stuff with the Antifa and all that stuff and these arsons, dude, it's unbelievable that Gavin Newsom had the balls to go and be look at this. This is climate change. And you're you spelled direct energy weapons wrong, you fucking piece of shit. And Antifa sentence. It's just unbelievable to me. But back to Jimmy's point, it's they're going to hold it to as long as they can until the last second, because I actually think Trump will take it easy on him, because Trump seems to be able to. When they brought up Trump, he showed a lot of kindness to him when discussing his mental abilities to be president. I mean,
they scheduled it. They scheduled it for the 29th. I'm not sure if it's in person or it's online, but they've now set an actual date. It's supposed to happen the 29th, like 2 weeks.
September.
Yeah.
No
we'll see, dude. I mean,
you should do a live stream. Watch it live.
Get your popcorn.
They should do pay-per-view.
Well, it's going to be like, dude, Jimmy, cancel any comedy shows you have that night, because no one's going to be going to a comedy show that night. They're going to be watching that. I mean, nothing. I will tune on just to see if the dude can make it to the end of it. This is like a old Mike Tyson fight. You're like, who's he fighting? And like,
it's going to be quick.
Make it to the second round?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's it? Oh, go ahead.
So to answer your question, why I hate myself, why I watch him, is because I used to be on the left, and the hatred for Orange Man, it's the hatred that made me like, I'm going to watch this guy. At least he's fucking funny. He makes me laugh, and I'm trying to decode, and I'm trying to figure out. And I do think on most days that it's all political theater, and we can blame us for wanting to have some hopium and to be like, is anyone in politics good? Does anyone have integrity? So that's the reason I watch.
Trump is different, because you look at the vaccine thing. He's the only president that I know that has ever publicly questioned it. Okay. You look at 9/11, right? There's video of him being interviewed after September 11th, talking about how he's like, I've been in many construction meetings. I've been a part of infrastructure, for a long time. He's like, I understand construction. I've talked to engineers. He's like, that's not normal. He's like, something.
But Ricky, let me say this, man. Like, Trump knows how to lean into things, right? So, for instance, he finally gets asked about QAnon, right? And he's known about QAnon. He's known about the fact that people are showing up to rallies in this. Obviously, he has briefings on it. So when the interviewer gets specific and says, well, what about the claims that you're saving the world from a group of satanic pedophile cannibals? What does he say? He goes, well, we have this radical left philosophy that we are fighting. And first he goes, wait, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So right out of the gates, he turns it on the reporter. Very smart. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Then he talks about the radical left, and he goes, you know what? We are actually, fuck it. We're going full board. He knows how to lean into it without saying, yeah, my group of people were in there for the deep state. And basically he's just saying he's going after those that are going after him. Let's be honest about it. I don't think that QAnon is some huge operation one way or the other. I think it started as a LARP. God knows where it is right now, but we all know it's basically juju and astrology for people that want to believe in hopium, right?
Yeah.
He knows that's still part of his base. And he's smart enough to exploit it, just like he knows people that believe that we were lied to about 9/11 are part of his base. He knows the Jones crew, part of his base. And just like he's smart enough when he says, I'll have a vaccine possibly before the election. And then Biden and Harris come out and go, whoa, we don't know if it's safe. What are you, an anti-vaxxer? What are you, anti-science? He's not a dumb guy. And that's what kills me. No matter how you feel about him, if you think he's an idiot, you have not paid attention to the last 40 years he's been in the public eye.
Right. And he's been having fun. I mean, his debate in Vegas, he was having the best time. We were like, this is like a comedy show. It was like, and he hit everything. It was like he could do that on, every night in Vegas. He was hitting the jokes. Everyone was in, and he was getting the laughs. He was loving every minute of it. Yeah. The guy is walking around like he won. That's why I have hope. I'm reading him and seeing a man who says, we got him. I got him. Because I believe his only promise he didn't keep was locking her up. And I believe he still believes he wants to keep that promise.
Just locking her up is going to be just like Obama shutting down Gitmo. We're just going to be like, well, he just couldn't do it.
Or Ricky, that we're actually going to get Assange over here for good things and we're not going to prosecute him. That's another huge thing right now. We haven't talked about.
I like this Bermas dude. Whoever this Bermas guys is, I'm liking him.
No one's talking about that this week in the United States, man. Right now, that trial is coming to fruition where they will extradite him on a phony indictment that is his administration's and will end free speech forever. And we have to push back against that. Again, he's not an idiot. You think it was a coincidence right before the Supreme Court says that Edward Snowden did the right thing, that he was saying, we're going to look at this Snowden thing. Totally obfuscating the fact the man ran on. Love the WikiLeaks. Can't get enough of the WikiLeaks. How about those WikiLeaks? By the way, what do you think about that Julian Assange being torn out of the Ecuadorian embassy? I don't know much about that.
Right?
Exactly. I don't know much about that.
Exactly. Why was that his reaction?
Well, because he knew the press would never call him on it, because they want Julian's head too, because they work for the same billionaire puppeteers that are suppressing information. This is nuts.
Yes,
we are going to make it illegal to literally put out
like
there
that Jack Nicholson
international war criminals.
Yeah.
What the fuck? No one. We got tens of thousands of people in the streets across the world for George fucking Floyd, and this guy has been tortured the last couple years in Belmarsh for literally exposing people fucking rape. You want to talk about kid rape? How about the kids that got raped in Abu Ghraib prison in front of their fucking parents that we know about? Those people didn't get in trouble. Abu Ghraib still exists. All these fucking puppets on the left that ran in 2008 with Obama, whether it was Edwards, Hillary, and yes, Biden, they all ran on we're getting out of Iraq and we're closing down Gitmo. No one even talks about that shit anymore. No one even talks about it.
Right.
I just saw some jobs recruiting people for Gitmo.
Jason's one of those those great researchers. And what I really have a problem with a lot of those guys that are always going deep into research is they can't sit there and go, yeah, I like this though. Everything is doom and gloom because, like I've said, we lived in this time from Reagan, probably even Tricky Dick, that we've had just horrible people in there. And I'm not saying Trump is going to walk on water or anything like that, man. But it's if you can't sit there and go, these things are actually pretty good that he did, I can't have a conversation with you because you're so blind, you're deaf, man. Yeah. And there are things that Trump did. So you could do what Jason does, and I see him do all the time, which is call Trump out on his BS. But you just hearing him right now, it's that's been my opinion for the last 3 years. It's okay, I like this. I like the stuff that he does. I like the shit talking he does. I like that he doesn't just kowtow and play the game. It's he seems to be on the up and up. So when he does something, he does it. Now there are things that we don't like his thumb on the Israeli Palestine thing. I want peace in the Middle East. The stuff that he's doing with his Jared Kushner. It's nobody really talks about what General Flynn was really doing when he met with Russia. Nobody ever talks about that at all. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we could go through a couple other things. I'll have a conversation about that. But it's if you can't talk about what he's done right, then then you're just a child.
Could you imagine if he was really playing 4D chess and the mandatory vaccines were all placebos? How that would screw with everybody. You'd make them mandatory, but they'd all be like saline. And
I've actually heard Charlie Freak say that they're going to be a therapeutic. I'm not taking my chances, but I don't know if you've heard of Charlie Freak.
You first, dude.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks. I don't need a placebo or a therapeutic. Got my immune system, thanks.
Well, even when we talk about the vaccines that they're talking about, I mean, again, I'll give Trump credit. Aside from the hydroxychloroquine, what did he say 3 weeks ago? He said, we'll do the convalescent plasma treatment. That will give you the antibodies. Well, guess what? All of these vaccine trials are just that. None of them are even telling you they're going to prevent the disease or even hopefully lower the mortality rate. They are advertising as such. You will get the antibodies possibly for a few weeks to a few months if this is successful. So again, I give the guy credit for trying to, basically battle what he can. I'm glad he's talked shit about the World Health Organization and get us out.
I love that.
Go further and just ban the UN. That's what he needs to do. Nationalize the UN building and kick them the fuck out of New York. I would be all about that. That would be a huge Trump move. If you want to make a statement against an organization that is obviously politically going for your throat, that's how you do it. They have no business in this country, especially when they're talking about mandatory quarantines, endorsing China-style lockdowns, and what? Saying we're not going to go back to normal until 2022 if we're lucky? I mean, this is madness.
Yeah, I know that, a lot of people are super negative against a lot of things. I know that, Jason, you're not a Q guy, and I'm just kind of open-minded to everything. But it's just like the things that he's done has really been we've never seen a president do this. And for me, man, the reason I believe that there's a part of the government that is pushing back is those Hillary sending emails to the Chinese government in real time, meaning every single email she ever emailed went to the Chinese government. So if she just, hit Postmates back because she didn't get a soda with her order, the Chinese government got that email. And that to me is a big thing. And I think a lot of people, you put that with Benghazi, you put that with, ISIS killing American troops, using American weapons, the Chinese email, and Benghazi. I think there's a part of this government, a part of this, our government that is still patriotic. That's not all just, sellouts and treasonous pieces of shit, but actually people who do care about the government. And doesn't have to be all of them, just enough that comes together to push back. And I really do believe that's what's happening. And we are seeing the end of the Bush Klan. The Republican Party got rid of the Bush Klan when they got Trump. And now the Democratic Party, this is the last of this stronghold of this group that George Bush Sr. basically used to destroy the country. That's my opinion.
I want to believe, Sam, but then I see those war games they're running with, the old neocons of rebuilding America's defenses, and then the old Obama crew of Podesta playing Biden, and they war gamed it in every scenario. And they said, you know what? If Trump wins in a landslide, we still won't concede. And then we'll say that California needs to be broken up into 5 states. And then we'll say that we need to recognize Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico as a state too. And we'll draw it out until January 21st. When we'll anoint Pelosi the president. Just putting that on paper and having Podesta play Biden. Look, man, there's no doubt in my mind who I'm voting for this year. And, a lot of people have given me shit about that.
Pedro.
The lesser of two evils last time, this time. And I was never that guy. If there was a good protest vote, maybe. But you're right. I mean, you look at it. There's a 1-minute ad out right now for Joe Biden, the plan. First of all, it's 60 seconds and they have to cut 6 times. Okay. So in other words, he couldn't keep it fucking together for more than 10 seconds. It's amazing to watch. But during that, he talks about the mandatory mask mandate and how it's patriotic. First of all, how the fuck does he know what's going on in January when he would be the president? Exactly. He's literally telling you that he's going to mask up the nation no matter what the science is or isn't. He's telling you that. And by that it will be mandatory vaccinations in this nation. And people are going to go along with it. I'm just saying this. It's been a wild 2020. I think October to January is going to show us some different things that we never thought we'd see. You think riots? I mean, riots. We didn't see riots in this country since Rodney King. And now it's just like literally you turn on the news or flip on your phone or whatever you get your media on. And it's not even a shock anymore that a major city is on fire. It's nuts.
Do you think the next wave, I think we're going into a third wave, not a second wave, but do you think the lockdowns are going to be lock-ins?
I mean, if we let them do what they're doing to Victoria and Melbourne, and again, that is UN suggestions, right? Yeah. I don't know what to say. I never thought we'd get this far, but there's been no pushback on Cuomo in this state. That's why I'm leading it. It's incredible to me that, again, he can just outwardly hold press conferences and say, yep, I'm giving this to Bloomberg, Gates, Schmidt, come on in, Bezos, and no one is pushing back whatsoever. They're just leaving. Or they have enough money, they just figure they'll wait it out upstate New York. That's crazy to me.
Jason, my worst case scenario in my head, and I know you think along these lines sometimes, is that, God forbid, Joe Biden does win. And after he's in, then they go after him for uranium one or whatever else. And suddenly the UN is taking over our country. Like,
if the UN comes, then you grab your gun and it's time to go. And it's like, that's it, man. You get foreign troops on our soil. Like, I know there could be like, oh, in Chicago, they got some UN trucks or in or somewhere in Texas. But if they come to patrol, man, that is an invasion by another country. And it's time to fucking rock and roll. Okay. And I'm sorry, but at some point you got to decide, are you men? Are you men? Are you grown-ups? Are you grown-ups? Are we just going to sit there and get cucked by this group? And like, do you want to live in that world where your grandchildren like, Grandpa, why didn't you do anything? I just didn't want to, ruffle any feathers.
That's also why they've social engineered men and weakened them.
Time to die, dog. Time to die. What a great day it would be to die, dog. Bring it, dude.
Let's talk some positive.
Pumping shotguns, calling up. I love everybody. I got a jam. Babies are calling. I love everybody. This is another great show. Oh, also, I think we should all talk about whether we should do a giant election day show. Like they kind of did the end of the year, end of the world podcast. I don't think they'll be doing it at the Comedy Store because it will be closed down. Maybe we should get as many of our friends on here as we can, and we just kind of walk everybody through it. So I just wanted to throw that out. Great show, everybody.
Nice to see you, Sam.
Always a pleasure, guys. Always a pleasure. Take care, everybody.
See you, Sam.
Let me just be one positive thing. Have you guys seen what happened a few weeks back in Idaho? Is everybody drawing a blank here? All right. So in Idaho, they stormed the Capitol.
Oh,
okay. There was an emergency session that they had put together for basically it was coronavirus financing. And these people, while they were getting arrested, while they were pushing back, said this is our house, demanded that this special session basically voted on the lockdowns. And they voted to take them away. So this is the Congress of the state of Idaho voting to end all the lockdowns 100%. Immediately, the governor who called it into session said that was not on the original agenda, so it is completely illegitimate. The Senate is still going to go through with the vote. And I believe that these people en masse charging their capital, demanding that, and using force, I'm going to be quite honest, they push past the police. These videos are must watches and have been suppressed in this country. Mm-hmm. This is the next step if we don't want it to get really violent, is to pass these things in our local state congresses and state senates. And then if these people do not want to comply with ending the lockdowns, well, we got to get our sheriffs involved. These people need to go to jail. They need to be arrested. I don't know any other way around it. I wish I had better answers, but things again have gotten so wild where I have people telling me it's a good idea to defund the police. I walk downtown in my little small town and people are in mass everywhere. It is every day is the twilight zone for me, guys. I don't know how
for all of us. For all of us, is Idaho red?
With me, we're living in a lawless. I mean, New York City is literally lawless. I mean, the criminals are running the show here. It's a dirty and it's everyone's.
Are you going to move, Mel?
I'm trying to stay here to be here for the apocalypse. But it's getting there. It's getting there. I feel like I don't want to leave. Like, I feel like that feeling of 9/11 too, where it's like, wait, I want to figure out how to fight this. But like Jason said, I don't see any groups, especially in New York City, fighting back. And 9 times out of 10, I talk to somebody and they, especially in Manhattan for some reason, they can tell me why Cuomo did a good job and why Biden's better than Trump. Yeah, still. Watching all of this, and it's completely it's like cognitive dissonance, but it's like you're talking to somebody who's literally their brain is not functioning normal. And
I think it's because they have so much hate for Orange Man that it's blinded them.
But how can you hate somebody that much that you would throw your country and all your freedom and your Bill of Rights away, possibly to be taken over by the UN?
I have friends that say, I'll vote for a monkey. I'll vote for a Mickey Mouse. I'll vote for a like anything but Trump. I don't know. They're if I fight for or stand up, they call me a racist. It's like, hello, I'm brown. Call me a religious zealot. Oh, you must support MAGA idiots.
And what has he done? That's so to hate. They just hate him. But how do you hate somebody that much that you can't see any of the good? None.
Don't even bother to look for the good. They don't even listen to him. They know what the media is telling them.
Well, this is how good of a job they've done dividing and conquering. I had Dennis Mckenna on my show for the second time. He was on some years ago, but I had him on recently. And he's the brother of Terrence Mckenna, which a lot of people might know, big into psychedelics and mushrooms. And this guy's huge in plant medicines. And the first time he was on, we talked about it nonstop, all the benefits of it, all the benefits of self-reflecting while, using these plant medicines and being able to find your inner thoughts and your feelings and how you really feel about certain topics. And this last time I had him on, we started talking, and initially, I don't know how we got into it, but we started talking about politics and what's going on in the world. And he immediately went on like this pro-Biden, anti-Trump rant. And Charlie, I think did you listen to that show? You did, right?
Yeah.
And I got so much negative feedback from that. They're like, this guy is crazy. And all I could think about was like the power of psychedelics, even the power of all the mushrooms in the world, couldn't help him see past this political nonsense. Like that's the power of, that's how good they are at dividing and conquering. That this guy, his brother is like the godfather of psychedelics. I mean, people, his speeches and all this stuff is so inspirational. And yet he uses
Talk
it.
About satanic magic. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable because the people on the left that are trying to promote this BLM idea, it's like, hey, Robert Byrd was one of his mentors, the Grand Dragon of the KKK. Spoke at the funeral. Wasn't the only funeral he spoke of. Other KKK members actually did that 3 other times. On top of that, ran as a segregationist in the 90s with the busing.
In the 90s.
Yes, in the 90s, 1990, I have him on camera. You go to C-SPAN and go see him talking about it and talking about affirmative action and all these things. And you're just like, your mind is blown. The guy's on camera talking about helping to cover up the Pakistani role in 9/11, the $100,000 wire transfer to Muhammad Atta. He met with General Mahmoud Ahmed, who facilitated that to him during the week of 9/11, threatened Pakistan on the floor. And remember, if you believe anything on the official version, Dan Rather put it out there in 2002. He was being protected by the Pakistani military in a Pakistani hospital, September 10th. Anybody can watch that CBS footage. Where did they supposedly find him? Abbottabad, Pakistan. So the guy's blatantly lied about the war on terror. He was part of Operation Timber Sycamore for Syria, which we still haven't gotten out of. All right. And then on top of that, on all those things that I just said, there is a multitude of videos of him on the halls of government manhandling children.
Oh my
manhandling
God.
children. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, at least 5 or 6 times, where if that was my daughter, I don't know how I would be able to physically restrain myself from taking him by the throat and asking him why he just put his mouth right next to her neck and breathed on it. I mean, this is a wild time. And now this guy's not even fucking he's senile. He's got dementia. You fucking put that in there and anybody can argue any point. I'm just like, where are we? Where are we? You don't actually believe you want this guy. You just literally hate the other guy that much.
That much.
Exactly.
That much.
He wanted to end raves. He specifically said that he wanted to end raves, and he said, make up an excuse to put them in prison. Who wants to end raves? How dare you? How un-American is that, man? That dude needs to roll his balls off one night till like 3 o'clock in the morning with Mickey Mouse hands and glow sticks. And
I think everybody needs to roll. I think everybody needs to drop some X.
Right after the shooting of those cops, he puts out a tweet saying that we have to take away automatic weapons. I thought, your answer to the shooting of 2 cops, the assassination attempt of 2 cops in their car, is to send a tweet an hour later saying that there's no reason to have assault weapons in America? I'm thinking, wait a minute, who's writing this? And then people say, well, I understand what he's saying. And I'm saying, it's so off. It's as if I'm at a point where whoever's doing his Twitter, I feel like is working for Trump. I don't know what's happening.
What do you mean? You didn't like that commercial with the car where he was driving around and looking like a hip young guy with a Corvette from 1964?
It was the best.
We're in some, you know what? I forgot. He's also
bike riding.
If 2019 wasn't the prequel for this, you got to understand the guy's on camera bragging about getting off a plane, withholding $1 billion from the Ukraine, if they don't fire a prosecutor investigating his son on the spot, not like tomorrow, like I'm on a plane in 8 hours. He says that shit next to the head of the CFR, Richard Hunt, who's laughing, and his minion. And you know what the result of that was? Trump got impeached. How the fuck does that work? That's literally how that ended up. Trump did a phone call being like, I saw this video and it's pretty shady. And what's going on with this investigation? We'll impeach him for that. He's going after a political rival. I mean, meanwhile, you got a literal gangster, Joey fucking B, cackling about $1 billion to have a prosecutor fired. That, I mean, again, almost nothing surprises me, but then everything surprises me.
Yeah. Do you think he'll be swapped out?
I started laughing when I saw that Adam Schiff throws out there that now he has a new whistleblower. I literally started laughing. I could not believe this. And it's at a point where it's becoming like a sketch comedy.
Is the new
shit show?
Is the new whistleblower going to be Ed Buck by any chance?
I hope so.
Because that would be interesting.
Where is he, by the way? We need him.
He's in prison.
I know, forever.
Well, it's like those YouTube commercials where you see Biden like stumble and you're like, you know how many takes it took to get this one shitty recording? Like, I want to see the bad takes because he sounds horrendous. Like, he's stumbling on. I'm just thinking, I'm like, really? Like, this is the best take? I hope somebody, like, some WikiLeaks person just releases the bad takes because I think that would be golden. That would be golden.
How much money have they raised? How much money has BLM and Antifa? Last week you go to Antifa.com and it reroutes you to Joey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're being taken advantage of. I truly believe there's a lot of young people and people who truly believe that, okay, there is some racist things about America that we could fix. I mean, I've had Freeway Rick Ross on my show in the past, and you guys are familiar with like the crack and cocaine difference. If you got caught with crack in the 80s, it was much more time. You got caught with cocaine, it was much less time. Obviously, that was blatantly racist. I mean, Nixon was on tape saying, he was trying to lock up minorities and whatnot with the war on drugs or whatnot. So, I mean, there are some issues. And the thing is, like, I think these people are being misguided and used by politicians. And I think some of them truly believe that, they're motivated by good intentions, but they don't realize that they are being used and they are being, they're just pawns in a political game and they don't realize it. So I hate to group them all together because it's not that they're doing harm and the other thing too, like that, why, like riots and protests have become the same thing. Like I see a riot and they call it a protest, and it's like, wait, wasn't this like, this looks like a lot like a riot. They're burning shit. They're damaging businesses. If they're not, holding Black Lives Matter signs, then it would be a riot. I mean, nobody would call it a protest, so it's quite obvious that, they're being used, but
they've been given purpose. They think they have a purpose. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. But and also how much of that anger and the things going that fast to from protests to riots, how much of that was because of the lockdown? I mean, how many people were trapped in their house for so long, going fucking crazy?
And
then that's all they needed. That's all the motivation they needed to just lose their mind and go and do this. And then in sports, I mean, look, it's ruining sports. It's ruining everything because a lot of people go to sports to get away from politics, and now you can't even do that. Like you can't watch sports to unplug from all this crazy reality anymore.
Ricky, they on the Thursday night game in Kansas City, when they did the show of unity where they all linked arms, it was just a chorus of boos from the only 16,000 fans that were allowed in there. And their ratings are down 16% year over year for opening night last season. So people are showing that like they're kind of, okay, we can do the protesting thing and have all that stuff. But and even to the extent the athletes, if they individually have some sort of opinion on this, that's fine. But when the leagues mandate when they mandate Black Lives Matter be painted on the courts for the playoffs in the bubble in the NBA,
slogans on the jerseys, I'm like,
and ratings are off a cliff on the NBA. People are not interested in this. Get woke, go broke is going to happen, and maybe not, completely bankrupt these organizations, but they're going to have to answer to their advertisers. Their advertisers are going to want to know why nobody is watching this. And it's very obvious why nobody's watching it, because they've infused politics. The NFL has done this for a long time with the salute to service with the U.S. military. Now they're paid to do that. They're paid to have, wear the camouflage and do that whole thing. And they're also paid to show the national anthem on television. They used to not do that, but it's contractual now. So there's a big part of this is propaganda and politics being infused into professional sports. And it's a gross combination because, like you said, Ricky, this is one of the things, it's one of the outlets that people want to get away from all this nonsense, to get away from the fact that we're clearly living in some form of a simulation if our two choices for president are Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So people want to watch sports and not have this horse shit crammed down their throat, but that's what they're getting.
This ratings last night, Sunday night, were down 28%. It just came out like an hour ago, and that was the Cowboys and the Rams. Rams opened a new stadium in LA.
Yep.
Two big teams down 28% since last night. Thursday night, J.J. Watt went on the news the next day, and the Texans said, I didn't understand people booing. The problem with these teams is they haven't had people in the stands to boo them. So they're like, why are you booing? Like baseball, they can kneel and the Marlins could throw one pitch and they could walk off the field. If they had 25,000 people in the stands, they're not going to walk off the field and just go home. And then everybody that paid for a ticket is just going to leave. So they know they could pull this shit while there's no fans. And then all of a sudden there's 16,000 fans in Kansas City and they boo and they go, what are you booing for? If they had fans in the stands in all these leagues this year, they'd be half full and people would be booing. They just haven't seen that. So it's a good year for them to protest when there's nobody, they don't hear any outside noise, live directed at them, except for the Chief game, which was great. It just shoved it right in their face. They're out there posturing, it's like the WWE, they know what camera to stand in, to mug it. So they're all locking hands. They get booed, like, you booed us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great. It was great to see. And I'm a big sports fan, but
me too.
Next year is when they're really going to feel it if they keep doing this shit. I think people already checked out and aren't even going to come back next year when they do have fans.
Jim, now as a stand-up comedian, we were talking about sports being like a way to unplug from all this madness. Now it's kind of like a two-sided sword, right? Because like, in a way, all this chaos gives you tons of like material, right? It gives you tons of stuff to write about, but some people might not want to continue hearing about it at a stand-up show. Like, so is that like an internal dilemma that some comedians might have in regards to like, do I talk about it because it is what everybody's talking about and it gives me tons of stuff that I could make fun of because like what we were doing with Joe Biden, I mean, there's endless material. Or do you feel like maybe I shouldn't talk about it because people might want to unplug from it?
I just don't, because I know every other comic, especially in New York City when Trump first got in, and every late night guy and Saturday Night Live, they were all doing the same joke. Trump was almost like a Polish joke. Okay, so what did he do at the end? That was a little crazy. So I don't do that because I'm like, all right, I got four guys before me. I'm not now. Okay, here's my political material. After you just heard four other people, you could hear the audience groan when anyone brings it up. They just tried like, oh, please, we got hit over the head with this shit. Don't bring it up now while we're out at a comedy show. So now they try to disguise the jokes. Like they'll go, my grandmother who hates Trump, she always screams when I go over there. So it's coming from the grandmother and not them. So if there's someone that doesn't, likes Trump in the audience or doesn't want to hear politics, well, it's a crazy grandmother saying outlandish stuff. So that's how they try to disguise it. I don't try to divide the audience. I'm not going to fight with them. I just go up there and tell jokes. They don't want to hear from me. They don't need another comedian that doesn't know anything about politics talking about politics. There's enough of them out there. It really is. There's enough of them. So they don't need another guy that barely knows. Comedians know how to write jokes and deal with drunk people late at night. Try to figure it out and navigate as they're on stage which way to go. That's what we're good at, and that's it.
If you watch Bill Maher, it's pretty much the shit on Trump show every week.
Yeah, I used to watch him, and then
He's not a comedian.
Sometimes he calls out the left though, and they go crazy. They get really mad. He does. If he just goes a little to the middle, they go crazy.
But this is the thing that's weird, right? Like Bill Maher, who all he does is shit on Trump. He's also one of the few guys that has been open to the vaccine debate and, pushed back against Big Pharma a few times. The weird thing is that used to be a left thing, right? Like you think of hippies, you think of like plant medicines and homeopathic and all this stuff, like, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm anti Big Pharma, and for some reason everybody standing with me is on the right, like instead of on the left.
Right.
It's so weird.
Yeah, that is one thing that Bill, probably because of his advisors, that he's one of the few that I've heard in the mainstream talk about the immune system and do a good service. But then most of the time it's just let's crap on Trump and make fun of Orange Man.
Well, he's a very organic diet, I hear. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he was very sick,
he's very into Hollywood. He's very into that. So yeah, I mean, he's not a comedian anymore. He hasn't been for 10 years. He's a political commentator, in my opinion.
10 years. He's been 25. Like, he's been doing that since Comedy Central.
Right.
Doing that. I think the Clinton campaign was when he launched Politically Incorrect, and Chris Rock was one of his correspondents. I mean, I watched him. I remember it. I've watched him growing up for years, and he got pretty untenable after the Obama administration. He really stopped talking about the war in the Middle East, which he was good on. He's pretty good on being anti-war. Every once in a while, like you said, he pisses off the left. But, I loved Religulous. I think he did that in 2010, 2011. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's a smart guy. But again, this partisan notion, Bill Maher is one of the people that put Vice News on television. He was an executive producer when they got that kick in HBO. So, he brags about, his political donations. Again, we're just in an odd world where everything's upside down, and anybody at this moment can kind of come forward with a piece of truth. And I think the main reason that is because we are in such like a dystopic nightmare. You talked about sports and you talked about people booing. Well, I caught the first football game I'd seen. I'm casual at best. I watch MMA. That's about it. And I heard what I thought was the crowd. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is there a crowd there? Oh, no, they're pumping in the crowd sounds. So the dystopia of the fucking, cutout people wasn't enough. Now we have to let you know that, he caught the football and he charged in. And So that also hurts because the normal person, they can't distinguish between fantasy and reality when they've been so used to that being reality for so long. You talked about the booing when they're down there. Well, now when there's still no crowd and they lock arms or they take a knee, what do you think they're going to pump in?
But it's kind of sick. No, it's like MK Ultra, right? I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like kind of sick. It's like they're gaslighting us to our faces. It's like they're pumping in cheering and all of this, and it's like they're trying to simulate a normal football game during normal times, but we all know there's no crowd. But yet they're doing it anyway. Why?
It's the sitcom laugh track. It's a sitcom laugh track. Cheer here.
I hate laugh tracks.
No, I know. It's silly. It sounds silly when they're putting in, the stadium's empty. You see the shot. There's nobody in the stands. And then, all of a sudden there's crowd noise when they score a touchdown.
But this is the new normal, right? That they kept using that term. And one thing that bothered me was the fact that it didn't bother me anymore that there wasn't a crowd. Like I could get into the games and there wasn't a crowd, and I'm like, why isn't this bothering me? I'm giving in to the new normal. Like I don't want to accept this. Like the fact that like I have kids and Jim, you have a young one too. Like you might never be able to bring to a wrestling match or a basketball game or like you're telling me that like what they're going to be adults by the time they can do that. Like what are we waiting for? This is insane. Like why can't? There's people gathering everywhere. There's people gathering at Walmart. There's people gathering, and you're telling me pools can't be open. You're telling me that families who come in together can't sit together at a game. Like this is madness, and that's why it takes somebody like initially it was the German soccer league was the first one that's like, okay, we're going to start playing regardless. They're the first ones that did it, and everybody kind of just waited for the explosion, like what's going to happen. And then they played and nothing happened. Then another league started and nothing happened. Another league started and nothing happened. And now they're still talking about cases like, oh, this person tested positive, but nobody's dying, so who gives a shit? And they're talking about, there's a article that came out not too long ago about how these tests are so sensitive that they're finding that the amount of the virus or the strength of the virus that you're testing positive for is so weak and so pointless that who cares if you, it's almost like in MMA, and Jason knows this, like, you know, there was a similar issue that John Jones had in regards to like the steroid tests have gotten so good that he could be in a room with somebody, you know, who has steroids and he could test positive for it, you know, and but it's meaningless. It's a meaningless test result because it doesn't mean that they're going to die.
They're not a diagnostic tool. K. Mullis stated that. Why doesn't the story end there? 80% plus are false positives. That means they're negative. And if you amplify it enough, it looks for the genetic code. If you've ever had a coronavirus, there's a whole family, it will come up positive. And this is now the Bible, that they have to stick this PCR, this swab, crossing the blood-brain barrier up into tickle your brain. And what is it really doing when we know that the first tests were contaminated with the coronavirus?
The UK. Yeah, it was the ones going to the UK. And what about the guy who Ferguson, who provoked this whole lockdown? His numbers were ridiculously high. The second they shut down the whole country, he's like, whoa, I didn't know you're going to do that. Hey, I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. And then they have a lockdown to a country that he caused.
Yes.
Okay, he influenced. And then he gets caught leaving his house during the lockdown
to go see his mistress.
Like, you can't make this shit up. Like,
and he's funded by Gates.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, there's
there we go.
There's story after story and story of the fact that we've been lied to, that things have been overblown, that things have, you know, alternative information has been suppressed. So when I meet somebody who still takes it seriously, I just look at them and I'm just like, where the fuck are you getting your information? Oh, you stop watching the news. It's like that old saying, like if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you watch the news, you're misinformed. And that's exactly what's going on. People are misinformed. People have to turn off. Even my wife. I mean, during the whole lockdown, I was doctors on, researchers, and I'm like onslaughting her with information. And then, like, you know, I go a day or two without talking to her about it, and she's watching the news, and all of a sudden she's like, well, what if it is serious? I'm like, stop watching the fucking news. I'm like, it just takes like 24 hours of you watching this nonsense for you to completely, you know, question everything that you thought you knew, you know. But that's the power of propaganda. That's the power of TV. It's this idea that, like, they're telling you this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and then you start, and it's the fact that the other tactic that they use, it doesn't matter if they overwhelm you with information, even if there's conflicting information. Just because there's so much information, how many people do you know that go, well, I don't know what to fucking believe, so I'm just going to wear a mask anyways? And they want. So
I'm doing a service to my fellow man.
Right.
So it's like I thought, like, pandemic came out, which I worked on in a small way. I'm like, okay, surely now it's over. Okay, now the 6% came out. Surely now it's over. And then I'm talking to my mom, and it's like, Mommy, I've been reporting on this since January. And she's like, Mary, this is not like the flu. It's worse. I'm like, throw your TV away. Right. Just throw it away.
Guess who wasn't falling for the propaganda? All the young kids who didn't give a fuck about the news, who are like, I'm going to hang out with my friends anyways. None of us have school. There's nothing to do. And guess what? I saw them all hanging out in groups. I saw them all. I talked to, you know, cousins and nieces of mine that were younger. They're like, I'm not watching the news. I don't know what's going on. We're just hanging out with my friends. So, like, guess what? They weren't fucking tricked because they weren't watching the news. They get their news from like Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you know? So the people who are watching mainstream media every single day were the ones being tricked into this. But it's the illusion of safety. My gym, everybody wears their mask underneath their chin. And you were all touching the same spray bottle. So you can't avoid, like, I'm breathing heavy. Like, I'm picking up dumbbells.
It's over. There is no fucking virus.
Yeah.
Is that Dean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. Sorry, I thought I muted my mic.
But in California, gyms are closed. Where are you, Ricky, that your gyms are open?
I'm in Massachusetts.
I'm in New York. They're open, but you have to wear a mask. They take your temperature right in the middle of your forehead when you come in. You have to wash it down. They're handing out gloves. There's no. Yep. It's so ridiculous.
Just such waste of energy. Life is so precious, and look at all this waste of time. I'm telling you, when I go to the airport tomorrow and I re-enter the Matrix, because I'm in like the jungle where no one here. We're gathering, and people are snitching on us. But You know, the airline said if you don't follow these measures, you're not going to get on the airplane. 10 hours, I'm going to wear a face diaper?
You can take it off when you eat.
It doesn't make any
It's
sense.
not acceptable then.
Yeah,
It breathes the recycled air that goes through it, the whole thing. None of it makes
It's
sense.
the no pissing section in the pool. You know, it's you can't pee in this section of the pool, but you can pee in this section of the pool. It's,
Right.
it's ridiculous. This thing
It's
is
like the
over.
smoking section on an airplane.
So
Remember that?
over.
When we were kids, they had like the smoking section of the airplane. Like, who thought that was a good idea?
Right.
So what are we gonna have? The virus section and the non-virus section? I mean, get the fuck out of here with this. This is insanity. Like, stop the simulation. I want to get off. I want this to stop. This is ridiculous. We have to wear a mask to walk into a restaurant. And then we sit down at the table and we can take it off. What are we doing? Why are we pretending this is actually working? It's like a collective delusion.
Totally.
And you want to tell the person that you see over there, like, hey, snap out of this.
Yeah.
And it's like they're in a trance. It's crazy.
I like when they make the cities close, you know, the bars close at like 11 o'clock. You know, so I guess it's the
10 o'clock in Portland.
11:01 from 11:10
Virus
is really
starts working.
out.
Yeah.
At 10:58, it does not really around, but as soon as 11 o'clock hits, that's when the numbers go way up. All of a sudden, the coronavirus comes out at night after 11.
The beaches close here at 2:30. Oh, Rona started working.
Yeah.
Started a
Shut down
shift.
now, so we got
You
to
can
close.
drink cocktails at a restaurant, but you can't drink cocktails at a bar because
Or on the sidewalk.
coronavirus gives a shit, apparently. It's
Ricky,
just,
I got to run, man. I got to put my kid to bed. So it was good meeting you guys and talking. I had a good
Bye.
time.
thanks for jumping in, Jim.
Later.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Future one.
Smart virus. Very smart virus.
But it is an issue that nobody's looking at these things logically. They're just going along with the herd. And when you really just sit down, that's why it's amazing how many people, if you're willing to have the discussion with people and you just break it down the way we break it down, like just start saying like, hey, does that make sense or that makes sense? And you just try to leave politics out of it. You can get a lot of people to kind of be like, yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you're planting the seed of doubt. And I think that those discussions are important to have because there is a lot of people who are just like picking a political team and whatnot, and then they get defensive. And if you don't make it a Trump thing, you don't make it a Biden thing, you just talk about like, hey, you know, does that seem like it makes sense? Does that seem like you can get through to some people, you know? But it's unfortunate that the majority of the time, you know, people do make it a political thing. If you're not wearing a mask, it's because you're a Trump supporter, you know. But that's actually another problem. There's not enough Trump supporters not wearing masks because I know a lot of people at my gym who are Trump supporters and they're wearing masks and I'm there with no mask. I do it just to walk in and I'm like, hey, I'll wear it to walk in so you guys don't get in trouble. The second I'm in this place, I'm taking it off. And I feel like a school kid. Like they're always like the first like week, they're always like, hey, do you mind putting it, you know, on just underneath your chin? I'm like, yeah. And then the second they walk away, I take it off again. And they just got sick of following me around. So they just don't bother me anymore. So I walk in and people are always like, hey, nobody gives you a hard time about your mask. I'm like, no, they gave up on me because I'm going to just take it off every time they turn around. And that's like I was telling you guys, you know, who were on the call early, I brought my son to soccer. And one of the coaches didn't get the memo that, and she was like one of the first or one of the only coaches that he hasn't been at a practice yet, like gives my son a hard time about not wearing a mask. And I'm fucking furious because he comes crying at me and he's like, Dad, you know, he told me he wanted me to wear a mask. And, you know, I told her that, and I told him, I'm like, just say it makes you sick. You know, if they say something and then tell them to come talk to me, you know, because I don't want to cause a scene. There's a lot of parents watching, other kids, come talk to me and I'll explain it to her. And then, you know, eventually I explain it to her, but I'm like, hey, he has a medical exemption. You should know this. All the coaches were told this. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. But what I really wanted to say was like, honestly, don't you fucking feel bad telling a kid to wear a fucking mask when you know this is bullshit? What evidence do you have? Like, if one kid isn't wearing a mask, like, just let him not wear a fucking mask. Pretend you don't see it. There's, you know, or stand up by just being like, okay, if he says that it makes him sick, I'm just gonna leave it alone. But like the fact that you're trying to reinforce some ridiculous thing is bothersome, you know, because there's too
Ricky, honey, it's cancel culture, baby.
Yeah.
They don't want to get called out, man. They have their whole job on the line. That's the thing. It's not that they believe it's one way or the other, and you could bring them some knowledge, and they, you know, they're still going to pull out, and they're going to be Trump. It's orange. It's bad. They're worried about being canceled by the other parents, and those parents are just itching for some sort of point that they can finally have some relevancy in their life and have a shred of meaning. And that reading is going to come in canceling someone else because that makes money, that makes friends, that makes power. It's really just, it's cancel culture, man.
That's what it is.
Sorry to jump in there, but I think that's what it is, really. It's nothing to do with science or knowledge or truth or comfort level or embarrassment. It's power.
Well, that's true, because even his head coach, when I sent him the medical exemption that I got for my kids, and if anybody else wants a copy, wink, go get you one. But and which I've been actually giving out to people. But if the medical exemption form, the coach called me and he's like, "Listen, I told the organization that, like, hey, I'm not opening up unless things are back to the way they were." He's like, "I'm not going to follow all these ridiculous guidelines." And, kids have to bring their own hand sanitizer. Kids have to, they have to stay at cones, when they're talking, and nobody can touch the ball with their hands. You have to kick it in, but apparently he got, there's too many people that were against him and said, "Hey, no, we should open it up regardless, because some type of youth program is better than no program." And I get that aspect of it. I get, like, there's kids who just want to be, I mean, my kids are now homeschooled thanks to all these ridiculous guidelines. So I don't just preach this shit. I actually, and I help other people. I mean, there's people who've hit me up for religious exemption forms. There's people who hit me up for mask forms. There's people who hit me up with all types of things. I'm not just saying this shit. My kids use that religious exemption form. They use the mask form. They're homeschooled now because, you know what? My kids in kindergarten, or my son should be in kindergarten. My daughter should be in preschool. Well, guess what? Neither of them are mandatory. So what's the point of being in the fucking school system and being in front of a computer all day? I spend most of their lives telling them that they shouldn't spend much time looking at a screen, so they don't. And now all of a sudden I'm going to backtrack and start forcing them to stare at a screen for hours at a time. No, it's ridiculous. So they're going to be homeschooled until this shit's normal. And if it never gets normal, then they might continue to stay homeschooled. And so that's just, people have to do those type of things. I went to a restaurant in Long Meadow, which isn't too far from where I live, or East Long Meadow. And there's a restaurant where they have no signs on the doors for mandatory masks. None of the employees were wearing masks. I walked in and I told my wife brings one because I always embarrass her by not putting one on the kids or myself. And I'm like, you don't have to put it on. I don't see anybody with one. So we sat down. Nobody said anything. And then when I went to the bathroom, she's like, "Hey, I asked the waitress about it." She's like, her dad's a real big Trump supporter. And he's like, "Fuck the masks. If people want to wear them, great. If not, no big deal." And they've been open the whole time. And we're like, I wonder if they'll get in trouble if somebody will say something. Nobody's done anything. So this shows that a lot of this is the illusion of power. You have to fight back. There's a golf course in Massachusetts near Boston who said, "Fuck you, Baker. We're opening up. We've been cutting grass for who? We don't know when we're going to open up again. You don't even give us a date on when we can open up. So we can't even prepare for that. And we've been basically maintaining our grass and our fields for we don't know what." So they send everybody emails saying, "Hey, this Friday, regardless of what the government says, we're opening up. Worst case scenario, they fine us. Like, we're gonna go out of business regardless. Either we're being fined or they're not letting us open up. But either way, we're gonna let people enjoy our golf course." So they did it. Well, guess what happened? Charlie Baker, because of the political pressure, because the owners actually end up getting interviewed on Fox News. Eventually, Charlie Baker's like, "You know what? I'll let the golf course open up." So it's like, oh, wait, I thought it was unsafe. That was the reason why you couldn't open up. If that was the reason, then why, out of political pressure, would you let this pass all of a sudden? Like, it should still be unsafe. It showed that it was all a illusion of power. If you fight back, it's going to do something. People are going to realize that, like, people are angry and maybe we shouldn't, overplay our hand. But if we just keep going along with it, hoping that it's going to end, cross our fingers, we hope it's going to end soon. We hope that's what people are going to say. Oh, well, maybe after the election, maybe it won't. Like, but either way, we shouldn't wait. Like, we should be outspoken. We should say things. We should not wear masks. We should, even if I know some people have something against the idea of lying about a medical issue to not wear a mask. I don't have any problem with that. I
don't have any problem.
You know what? Everybody should lie about. Everybody has fucking asthma in the U.S. Okay.
Yeah, I have asthma now.
Panic attacks. I get panic attacks. Like, everybody should say that, and then eventually they're like, "Well, nobody's wearing a mask anyways," and maybe they'll leave us alone.
I wanted to say your point. Yesterday, when I was watching the Trump rally, I saw too many masked people wearing Trump MAGA. I was disturbed. You too?
Yeah. I saw his face too. And I thought his face reflected him seeing how many people wear masks. But I'm pretty sure that Henderson, Nevada's mayor put out something saying that it was mandatory, because I noticed also that the masks were Trump and MAGA masks.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that they handed them out on the way in. But no, I was disturbed too. It's just a sign of submission.
Yes.
And, and nobody's being honest. And when we saw the masks, like you did, we were both like, oh my God, look at all those people masks. And then I realized they said Trump and MAGA. And I'm like, oh, they must have been handing them out.
That's a good point.
I was surprised he didn't immediately say something. Like, what's the masks? But he can't do that yet, I guess. I don't know.
I've loved it a few times where he's like, I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I love it too.
Gotta take off your mask. I love when he does that. And,
like, you're 7 feet away.
Exactly. And to your point, to fight back, well, I tried to fight back. I'm in a foreign country. They called the police. And then I'm like, why are you calling the police? Because you're being like rebellious. And then American Airlines, I had to cancel my flight altogether because they basically said, we don't give a shit that you have a medical exemption. So there's some draconian businesses that are not going to care. On top of the fact that American or United or whoever, the whole world, the disinfectants, okay, you're spraying irritants for the lungs to protect you against the virus that irritates the lungs. Exactly. You retards.
Exactly. And they have on the planes, you're flying tomorrow, so you probably know this, but they do have on the planes that they have a new system of cleaning the airplanes. And then they lock you in there with this new cleaning system they just came up with the chemicals in the air and everything, and you're in a mask. And I'm thinking, does anyone believe that this is safer?
You're cleaning it while you're in the plane?
Yeah. They clean it before and after. And then when you leave, they spray the plane, and then the next people get in. And it's like,
they have a deal with
Clorox. How can it be safer? I don't understand.
No, United said that they have a deal with Clorox. I have a full-on N95 mask and a hazmat suit. I'm like, okay, mofos, I'm going to just take it up a notch. Because if it was really a virus, this is how you should be outfitted. Let's see how you react. I bought that mask in December for aerotoxic fumes because upon landing and takeoff, there's organophosphates in the air. And I have chemical sensitivities. So I'm going to see how they're going to react to their full-on real mask.
And the truth is, on the box it tells you that it doesn't protect you from coronaviruses. So it's like the idea that people are still arguing that masks will help. I'm like, according to what? Because the people who make them don't even think that they'll help. So where is this going? It's madness. But I'm not surprised that 3 East Coasters are still talking and strong and full of energy. We just come with the energy. I love East Coasters because we could talk our
I'm originally from the East Coast.
Are you?
From Montreal, Canada.
Montreal. Oh.
Yeah.
St. Catherine Street? Oh, that's
St. Catherine's. Did you used to visit?
I did. Yeah, that's why it burns when I pee. But
oh Jesus.
It was a joke. It was a joke. Hopefully my wife's watching Dance with the Stars. There's no way she's listening.
I never went to a strip joint in Montreal. Just heard things about strip joints. Sorry, I was gonna say LA, which is the beacon of health. The gyms are not open. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I don't know how there's not mass suicide in LA without open gyms. I mean, most people spend all day at the gym.
There are open gyms, actually. There are actually open. My girlfriend is going to an open gym, but I'm going to SF. I'm going to San Francisco because I want to go and attend a conference in Florida, the American Priority Conference. So, and I don't know, maybe everyone's like, you're in heaven. Why are you coming back? Stay where you are. Stay where you are.
On that note, do you guys want to let everybody know where they can get your stuff, where they can connect with you, where, if you have any upcoming projects or anything that's going on, share with the listeners? Anybody? Jason?
I do it live 3 to 7 times a day. I just interviewed John Fitch about his retirement just before this broadcast. I interviewed Dan Dix today, who got banned from YouTube recently and was at a Vancouver rally. I should be having Ross Ulbrook's mother on this coming week, and I'm just going to keep doing my thing and trying to talk truth in an ever-growing world of lies, Ricky.
I'm on Charlie Ward every Friday at 6 p.m. and I, until at least the election, I'm Impulsive Woman on Twitter, and my website's Manic in Manhattan, and my book is coming out, Manic in Manhattan, and that's it. That's me.
What's your handle again, Mel?
Impulsive Woman. Manic in Manhattan is my book and my website.
I've got a new book coming out with Jeff Berwick from the Dollar Vigilante in the next couple of weeks called The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. We were able to edit in the COVID stuff. We thought we were done, and then this hit. And so we had the opportunity to add more into it. So that book will be available in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes open for that.
Nice. Congratulations.
Maryam, you want to?
Yes, pray for me. I'm leaving back to California tomorrow. I just got out of YouTube jail. I was written up in USA Today as another smear piece as part of Operation Quack Hack. I'll be interviewing James Perloff soon, who just wrote a book on the coronavirus. And I have another story I've been following. I haven't tapped out on George Perry Floyd, so I have a story coming out maybe today or tomorrow on the latest hearing. By the way, the latest thing is that he might have been an informant.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. And you can follow me, please. I live in Twitterville, sharing all the time at Maryam Henein.
You are like a poet. You have so many clever little lines.
I'm a writer. I'm a journalist.
Dean, do you wanna say anything? Or you Dean is, I don't even know if he's there. Dr. Dean. No? Oh, he is. Something happened.
I'm here. It's just really loud where I'm at, but just Dean Reiner Up is Down podcast. I just did a little analysis of all the wildfires on the West Coast. You check that out on Twitter. Check that out on iTunes. Up is Down podcast. But I gotta go, you guys.
See you, Dean. Take care.
And what's his handle? What's Dean's handle?
Oh, on the tweets, it's just at Up is Down podcast.
Up is Down podcast. That's it. That's his show.
That's my show. That's my Twitter. That's my and also DeanReiner.com. That's it.
Mike left, and I don't think that the dinosaur talks, so we'll just have to. OBDM podcast, check it out. It's hilarious. All these little these little background samples that you hear, he does that nonstop on the show, and it's hilarious.
It's the best show on interwebs.
That's so nice.
OBDM, Our Big Dumb Mouth, is what it stands for, and it's fantastic. They do 2 shows a week.
Yep, live Saturday at noon, and I think Wednesday nights
Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, with Joe. I wish Joe was here. Joe and I have a common anarchist background that we tend to see the world the same way. When he's screaming on the show, I'm screaming right along with him.
Yeah, Joe needs to come on these shows more often because he's like us. He brings a lot of that passion. He gets worked up.
Man. I love his anger.
I never understood Alex Jones until like I start talking about these things because you can see how he gets worked up because we get worked. Like if you're passionate about it, it's hard not to get worked up when you're really upset about what the fuck's going on. So we're just like Alex Jones, just in shape.
Thanks, Ricky, for setting this up. I know Mike's
thank you, Ricky. Thank you.
It was so great. Everyone's awesome.
Thank you. I'm totally grateful because I'm so censored. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Yep. Thanks, Ricky.
These guys.
Ricky, will you add everybody's? I would like to follow everyone. And
I'll send. Usually, once we have the audio and the video ready to share with all the participants, we'll also share the links to like who was on the show. That way, you can kind of connect and whatnot. And maybe I'll put everybody's email address in one email. That way, I've been doing that a few times. Just that way, if anybody who's on the show wants to connect with somebody else on the show, it's a great way of networking. So it's been yeah, it's been cool doing this because I've seen a lot of people who've been on this show doing each other's shows after. So it's been a great way of kind of getting everybody together on the same page and helping each other.
Cross-pollinating is what.
Yeah, absolutely. Spread that demon sperm, right?
That's exactly right.
Thanks, guys.
God bless everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy.
What the hell is everyone still doing here?
We're leaving. Dad's here. Gotta go.
Finishing up, and we did let everybody know about your show and all that stuff. So we filled them in.
You kids get off my lawn. All right.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming through last second.
Hey, no problem, guys. Hey, it's a pleasure. anytime. Love you. And I guess we'll see everyone next time, right?
Yep.
All right.
God bless you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.